Brand new day, brand new week, and we're here at your service. It's Monday, the 19th day of the 9th month, September, and boy, are we glad to come your way. This is the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. I'm doing this today with Bernice Abubedu Lanza. Wherever you are, welcome aboard. It's a mouth-watering lineup we have for you this morning, and right after the news, well, joining us for the news review, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa, Sulemana Brima. He'll be joining us. But then we get into our big stories. And today we have a one-on-one, bear-it-all conversation with Sammy James, National Communications Officer of the Opposition, NDC. Look, you don't want to miss that one. We're going to be discussing an array of issues from the economy to Galamsey and why he thinks the NDC is a better alternative for this country called Ghana. But another very, very important matter, salient issue we're going to be discussing this morning. We head to Wa, where a body was discovered only yesterday. Now, you know there has been a series of deaths or killings involving private security men, 7 at the last count. We'll be telling you about that situation as well as we head up north. But also coming up this morning, the Pope John Old Boys Association, the 2015-year group, is celebrating 17 years of leaving Pojos. Wow. So there's a homecoming event this weekend in Coftown, and we're bringing you more details when the Dasibres join us for a breakfast. We've also got Drive Safe coming your way. We'll be telling you more about how to drive safe, stay alive, and keep others safe as well. But also coming up on the beat, Queen Elizabeth II will be buried later today. We will be at the British High Commission here in Accra. We'll also be in London. You know how we do. We give you an international vibe. So stay with us. In the course of the show, share your thoughts with us with the hashtag AMShow. When we activate the phone lines as well, you can actually call us on that number. Of course, if we're marking some 15 years, or is it 17 years, then it must be 2005 year group. And those are the ones who will be joining us today. Slight correction there. So just stay with us and let's have a wonderful show. Up next, the news. Do stay. Thank you for staying. Let's settle now for the news. And in our first story, Lands and Natural Resources Minister Samuel Abujinapo says operators of small-scale mining in the country must be treated with tact. According to him, despite the activities of illegal miners, licensed small-scale miners contribute significantly to Ghana's economy. Hence, a cautious approach must be employed in addressing the challenges plaguing the sector. He spoke on Newsfire.
A good deal of work is gone into this matter of small-scale mining. And we have been dealing with this matter from a two-pronged approach. The reformative approach and the enforcement approach. They must go hand in hand, which is that whilst you are enforcing the laws, you also must put in place a regime which makes that sector sustainable and which makes that sector viable. Always and always remember that small-scale mining contributes 40% of Ghana's gold output. And the gold industry gives Ghana its highest foreign exchange earning and is the highest revenue mobilizing sector when it comes to exports. So there's a link between small-scale mining, gold output, our national economy, our currency, our foreign exchange status, and all of that. So when you are dealing with small-scale mining, you have to deal with it tactfully, because you don't want a situation where you also roll out an enforcement regime which literally kills the sector completely, which will mean you will lose 40% of your gold output, which will mean you will lose income into your national economy, which will jeopardize your economy. So whilst you are regulating the sector, which is the reformation, which are some of the things we've done, community mining, bringing the gold processing, gold catcher, mercury-free gold processing equipment, reforming the licensing regime, the cadastral maps we brought, the online applications, working actually hand in gloves with the small-scale miners association to make sure that we identify those who are engaged in that industry responsibly and in a manner which doesn't jeopardize the environment. That is one bit of it. Then the second leg of it is the enforcement regime, which is where the matter you put before me comes in. How do you proceed on that? And how is it being done? What I can say is that you recall that a lot of measures were put in place, decommission of excavators, really going after these illegal small-scale miners, declaring forest reserves and the river bodies as red zones. And that also came up with its own controversy and its own commentary. You have to be too high-handed. You are clamping down on people who are trying to make ends meet, and so on and so forth. It will appear that in that period, there is some resurgence of this phenomenon of illegal small-scale mining in a manner that is not satisfactory. It simply means that we are going to ramp up the enforcement mechanism, the enforcement measures. And this has been occupying almost all my time in the past week or two. And in the days and weeks to come, the Ghanaian people will see that the enforcement measures are going to be ramped up. But I need to caution that it cannot be an event, something, and it cannot be the responsibility of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources alone. It is going to be a collective responsibility.
Well, from the issue of Galamsey, let's talk about the body of a middle-aged man, which has been found in a shallow grave in Awa. Residents suspect he's one of 7 private security men killed in the town in 5 months. The body was found by a search party about a kilometer from his place of work. Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam reports that the decomposing body was without several important parts.
The recent spate of suspected ritual murders and disappearances of 9 persons in the one municipality the last 8 months has resulted in the formation of search parties from where the victims are from. It was further heightened by the suspected killing of 2 private security men stationed at Star Standard Academy and the Water Technical Institute, both in the Napobukole enclave. One of the search parties from Chere, with a membership of a little over 2 dozen, on Sunday went on the prowl looking for their brother Badibe Kwame, who was allegedly murdered at Star Standard Academy. The search party in one of the locations spotted an eye and a tank believed to be for humans.
We were in the bush, actually, moving from one bushy area to the other, from one uncompleted building to the other. We go to a bushy area, we realized that there were some materials there that, in fact, we couldn't ascertain whether that was human material or whatsoever. So we called on the police, came to come around and help us do a thorough search.
The search party, after coming around for close to about 2 hours, got to this house, which is now seen as a den for the suspected murderers. There are a lot of things that are enclosed in that particular building. What greets you first upon entering our 6 cement blocks knitted together to form a firewood stove. Inside the firewood stove are cooler, calabash, white cloth, and yet to be identified roots. Traces of the tires of a bicycle were also spotted inside the room.
Very bitter, I'm crying. If this is my father who go out to bring me something to chop, to feed me, and this thing happened to him. They are killing me, not my father. I'm the person they are killing. So it's very headache, very painful, very painful. If you enter the uncompleted building, you see that this thing, they are cooking this thing they make there. I don't know whether they do the roasters of the meat, we don't know. But we saw some white cloth with a collar, with some calabash. We saw it there, and they put it in the cooking this thing there. You see? So there is something going badly.
It appears this is the epicenter of the ritual activities. Outside the building, arrows they believe were mostly used by the victim on his bow were found. A pickaxe and a shovel concealed in a maize sack soiled with blood was also spotted close by. They further moved to another location where they saw a shallow grave covered, but close to it was a bent lorry tie.
They say we should dig this place and see. That is where we suspect there is somebody there. So one of the CID man, Oscar, dig for some time. She gave it to me to also help him. So when I dig, I saw that there is someone there. So we say, oh, by God willing, what we want, we will see the signal. God is on us. So we see the man there, the one they killed at the Water Technical back, the one who from Pungu. That's the man we saw here. We were thinking that is the Chere man, the Star Standard man, but not that man.
as their own. Some important parts of him were however missing.
Not a full human being. They remove the part, the serious part, that's the brocos, the one we used to enjoy, they remove it out. And they cut the stomach. We know there is something there they remove, but we didn't know what they remove. Well, they put some cloth inside. When they cut and remove what they want, they could put cloth inside there. So we didn't see, unless they sent to hospital, maybe the doctors will do cosmetic or something and see what they remove there.
Is there a breakthrough?
Police at the scene were tight-lipped about their next line of action. The lifeless body of Seydou Bagadapoli was moved by the police to the Upper Regional Hospital morgue for autopsy.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafik Salam, Napobokole.
Well, now the Techiman Municipal Assembly has started evacuating an abandoned refuse site at Jacko less than a week after a JoyNews report showed how the site was affecting residents. Now, though the residents are excited, they want city authorities to institute stringent measures to solve the sanitation problems of the area. And Asabit revisited the community and came through with this report.
A couple of days ago, the heap of refuse coupled with the stench and sometimes the smoke it produces continuously serve as a health threat to the people living in this community, particularly pupils of a number of schools that are around. Of course, we were here to tell that story. The assembly swiftly responded by evacuating the refuse around. Today we are back here at the Jacko refuse site, not to tell that old story, but to engage residents on what they think needs to be done to ensure that we do not go back to that same story.
In the first place, we'd like to say a very big thanks to them for listening to our plight and coming to our aid. But if you look at this isn't the first time this has been done. I think this is about the 5th time, if my memory will serve me right, that rubbish has been evacuated from here. But anytime this is done, we get a repetition of what we saw just a few days ago. So having done this, I think the government should take steps in ensuring that this thing doesn't repeat, because collecting or evacuating the rubbish itself is waste of resources.
Mary Suntro is a resident here. She wants the assembly to revisit the site and reclean it thoroughly to ensure that the community do not continuously dump on the floor.
Nti ya pese nka omu no assemble for no omu nya omu budget na nka omu be dwiri kama no omu level so no omu fa na tie ngusu na enya kama na nka sika na omu be gigi na nka omu agigi ama ye sa na nka ye pe no.
Osman Isba is the headmaster of Aswad Islamic Academy. He suggests that the containers need to be moved further closer to the roadside, plus the assembly needs to re-gravel the place and also establish a caretaker who will ensure that no resident will be dumping on the floor, even if the containers are full.
If you look at currently, you can see from behind where the containers are. I think if they should move them somewhere close to the street and get someone who will be taking care of it, so that anytime it is full, the person will alert the assembly to come for it. The place, as we speak now, has been termed as a refuse dump site. So obviously, if anybody picks rubbish from their house, this is where he comes to or she comes to. So if they are coming and they see that there's someone here who is taking care of the thing and he doesn't allow anybody to dump the rubbish once it is full, fine. If they are going to even look for strategies or measures, like the person will be available. If you come and he has to charge you something, take the rubbish down so that after the emptying and a new one has come, then he puts them. I think we'll be able to manage it. And if they could gravel here too for us, so that will make here a playing ground for the students. If you are playing here, that will also save the place from the dump.
So once again, the assembly has done its part. The community has a role to play to ensure that this place is kept away from being converted into what we saw a couple of days ago. But the assembly, once it is in charge of sanitation in the community, people want the assembly to institute lasting measures so that we do not revisit that same page. From the Jacko refuse site for JoyNews, my name is Anas Sabit, reporting.
Let's talk health now. Has the National Health Insurance Authority is encouraging parents with children suffering from cancer to register with the scheme to ensure adequate management of the disease. Chairman of the governing board of the NHIA, Dr. Ernest Kwako, says early detection of childhood cancers is vital for successful treatment. He was speaking at a childhood cancer awareness walk in Kumasi.
The National Health Insurance Scheme has begun covering some childhood cancers. These comprise acute lymphoblastic leukemia, Burkitt's lymphoma, retinoblastoma, and Wilms tumor. These 4 cancers are said to constitute approximately 60% of all childhood cancers and are highly curable if detected early. The walk saw participants tour the principal streets of the Central Business District and Bantama Township amidst brass band music to raise awareness of the disease and intervention by the authority.
We at the National Health Insurance Authority are very excited to be part of this walk for children cancer awareness raising. I am representing the governing board. I'm the chair of the governing board. And as you can see, my staff are here. We are here in our numbers to join the doctors and nurses who treat children with cancer to do this awareness walk, to raise awareness about children cancer, and that children cancer, when detected early, are completely curable. Last year in November, the president was gracious enough to let the First Lady announce the inclusion of 4 childhood cancers onto the insurance benefit package. And July this year, we started operationalization for paying claims for childhood cancers, 4 of them. And here today we are here to symbolically join the work for children cancer awareness raising. And we are happy for 2 reasons. One, that when we indulge in physical exercise, it reduces disease. And maybe let me just say that when disease burden goes down, then we can save a lot at the insurance. Then we can rope on more benefits onto the package. The other thing is that if we have money to bring childhood cancer onto the National Health Insurance Scheme, then it stands to reason that we join in raising awareness that every child who has cancer should register onto the scheme. Even if the child doesn't have cancer, register a child onto the scheme. You may never know when the child will benefit.
Head of the Pediatric Oncology Unit at the Confanochi Teaching Hospital, Dr. Vivian Pencil, was worried inadequate space hinders the effective treatment of patients.
We have very small space for them, just a 10-bed unit, and then the patients are even more than that. So it becomes very difficult for you to manage. And then when they come also from far away, like from Bogatanga, from Wa, sometimes it becomes very difficult, okay, for them to sleep. And so we are hoping that we can get people to help us so that they can build a mother's hostel for them.
Reporting for JoyNews, Kwesi Deborah.
Well, a non-governmental organization, International Justice Mission, is asking the Christian community in Ghana to join and passionately support its campaign against child trafficking in Ghana. Speaking at an event to raise awareness on all forms of modern-day slavery, Government and Industry Relations Specialist Benjamin Akakpo said the sophisticated nature of the canker demands the contribution of the church if Ghana is to win the fight. There's more on that in this report.
In Ghana, the trafficking of children remains one of the biggest socio-economic challenges. Despite efforts to clamp down on the crime, the difficulties remain due to some social and cultural practices.
Some of the facts that should feed the data has grossly been ignored because this one is just me and my children doing some traditional thing, passing on labor so that they can learn the skill of doing. But if you were to go down, you will realize that people are selling their own children, or if you like, people are trading in this crusade so that they can be able to profit economically. For us, it is very prevalent.
Many children continue to suffer under very cruel regimes, especially on the Lake Volta. Godwin Dudbe is one of such who has been rescued by IJM. He shared his ordeal with the Living Word Assemblies of God Church at Kwashiman, host of this year's Freedom Sunday.
She later on told me that a brother of her at Dambai wants to meet me so that he can also help me with some school items. I said, well, fine. So we set off from there. We reached Abotiasi And I tell the woman that this is not Dambai because I know Dambai very well. And she said that we are going over lake. Early in the morning before I woke up, the woman is nowhere to be found. I asked everybody, they all said that they don't know where she is. The following morning, 4 o'clock dawn, a son of the man that the woman introduced me to woke me up that we should go on fishing that night. So I'm here to fish.
Freedom Sunday is a global celebration of the International Justice Mission to speak about and pray for the end of all forms of modern slavery. Government and Industry Relations Specialist of IJM, Benjamin Akakpo, underscored the need to partner with churches.
So today we partnered with the Bible Society of Ghana, and then we've been on their platforms as in their affiliate churches to have this crusade. So what we're saying is that you should open your eyes. It's all over us. But because crime generally is not something that is done in broad daylight, it's hidden. So we must be alert and look out for suspicious activities. We should use our voice. Even so, we should use our knees. We should pray. Sometimes those who are doing it, they need conviction. They need the heart of God to know that what they are doing is wrong. And even so, we should open our hearts to welcome people who find themselves in that situation. So basically, this is our call to action, and we do believe that we may not be able to eradicate, but we can reduce re-victimization and also considerably bring the phenomenon down.
Senior Minister at the Living Word Assemblies of God, Reverend Joseph Kojo-Amwako, said it is imperative for the church to step up the campaign as it is part of the mandate. Meanwhile, his own childhood experience makes it compelling for him.
Christ came to die to deliver man from the bondage of sin. So in essence, Christianity is setting man free. And so looking back at my own life, what I've gone through in the hands of people, not that the people that I don't know, the people who relate to my father, what I've gone through in their hands. And I've seen, as a pastor of this church, so many issues have come to me. Children who are living with other people as a help, what they are going through. So I think this program is the best for me to help so that we can re-echo it to the masses. That everyone will open his eyes, will open our ears, don't just walk around, see things and say something.
This year's Freedom Sunday was celebrated under the theme, The Least of These.
Now, in our next story, the Africa Friendship Association, a Turkish NGO, has handed over 3 boreholes to 3 communities in the Nanumba North municipality of the northern region. Residents of these communities in the past traveled several kilometers to other communities in search of water. Correspondent Martina Bugri has the rest of the story.
The communities Dangbe, Kunkuna and Japanese estate largely depend on handak wells or tanker service for their water. The cost involved was huge, especially for the already poor people. It is against this backdrop that the Turkish Friendship Organization decided to drill these boreholes. Some of the residents who spoke to the media said the intervention comes as a relief to the residents.
And the women had to struggle in search for water vis-a-vis their activities. So most of the time it was a difficulty having to combine the issue of searching for water and their trading activities. So as at now, we are more than happy that the issue has been resolved, but the area is so large that what we have received, the one borehole, may not be able to satisfy the area, and we are making a passionate appeal that more of it should be given to us.
In Kunkuna, we used to have challenges with water, but fortunately, these people have come to our aid. We do not have taps or boreholes in this area. We only purchase our water from tanker services. and that is not potable water. So we are grateful for this support.
Ali ibn Wama tradir como alapam susuwane.
We used to have a lot of challenges with regards to water, and the former regional minister realized that. He brought these people and they gave us a borehole. We are so grateful for that.
A representative of the Turkish Friendship Association, Jamal Abdel Nasser Salifu, said the organization is in education and social relief. He added that the former Northern Regional Minister, Salifu Said, facilitated their coming into these communities.
Within Northern Region, we have about 139 boreholes. We also send students to take it to study both Arabic and English. That's Western education and Islamic region also. Our mission is that we have realized that water is life. Water is life, and it is very, very important. We've based in the Northern region because when you look at the Northern region, we are far, far, far behind. Like when you go to some villages, you see that animals and human beings are drinking the same water. That's where we have this guinea worm. You see, we just want to eradicate all these things. We never knew Bimbala. So, Honorable SS, that's former regional minister, Said Salif, here of us, and he last came to Turkey, and then they directed him to us because I'm the rep in Ghana. When we went back to Turkey, we met and he told us about his problem. I said, okay, no problem, we'll come and do something. This is even the second time of coming to Bimbala.
Well, it is on that note that we cap off the news this Monday morning. But do stay with us. The news review is up next as we dig into the papers with Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleiman Abrahima. We'll be right back. Time now to serve you the news review. We're joined by Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleiman Brahima. Mr. Brahima, a very good Monday morning to you.
Good morning, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Right. Well, we thank God for the gift of life. It's a wet morning. I don't know whether you stepped out there already, but some of us who come from pretty far out, it's not been easy. If you don't set off early, you'll be caught. You know the hazards on our roads when it rains, and traffic lights, some of them are off. And everybody is trying to weave in. It's chaotic, but that was the experience this morning. At least we're glad everyone is well. It's been a full week or more since we had an interaction. I would just ask you this question to set the tone for our conversation. What is Suleiman Brahima's life like this week? Over the past week, what has it been like for you economically, socially, culturally? We've marked the death of the Queen. I think that was on the 8th of the month. We saw Otumfuo invited. The invitation had to be turned down for certain reasons. Then shades were thrown at the Agbogbomefia of the Asogli state that he had not been invited by a presidential staffer of all people. So many things have happened. Quick reflections before we get into the papers.
Well, it's been quite a turbulent week. Personally, shuttling between Accra and Kumasi, I had an event to engage with the Ghana Police Service on police accountability as far as the media is concerned. And so I think I spent part of the week in Kumasi, and of course, reading around what is happening around the world in relation to the funeral of the late Queen, and then, of course, the developments locally. As you mentioned, Aisha Juan, and yes, I read about that shade that was thrown at the at Toby Afede, which I think is quite unfortunate. And then in between, of course, having to engage with colleagues at the Media Foundation with all the programs and projects that we are running, our media and good governance interventions, engaging with my colleagues at the Fourth Estate, at Fact Check Ghana, and of course, also being with kids and spouse at home. So it's a full cycle, and it's been great.
Typical family man. Just to take your thoughts as well, the situation in Wa, as it has developed, seven people now have lost their lives, and a lot of them, at least 4 or 5 of them, having body parts taken out. This morning we were talking about one person who has been found who is suspected to be part of this number, and body parts had been taken. His genitals, part of his genitals had been taken, and all of that. Some have said it could be foreign nationals, but there is no investigative report that could point to that. And the people have been cautioned not to, go out on that tangent because no one knows that. Who knows? It could be a serial killer on the loose. But what do you make of that development? Very, very strange.
Yeah, very strange, particularly also in that part of the country. Of course, we've had previous instances of developments where people would insinuate spiritual murders and all of that. I believe in the past it's happened in somewhere in the Brong-Ahafo region, now Brong region. We've had such developments in the Western region, particularly now in Western North. But matters like these have hardly been reported from the northern part of the country and Upper West. Upper West in particular has been one of the most peaceful regions of our country. And that is why a development like this is quite worrying. It's important that our investigative bodies urgently go into this and be able to bring out some reports that would point to what exactly is happening. Of course, we as media also have a role to play, and we need to perhaps also go behind the scenes a bit to be able to bring to people what the dots are and trying to connect the dots for people and liaise with the investigative bodies to ensure that at least people begin to have what the truth of the matter is, and also in a way that would help people know where to go, where not to go, what to do, what not to do, without unnecessarily raising panic for people. So it's a very, very serious development, very worrying one, and quite a strange one. And that's why it's important that as quickly as possible, the relevant bodies and institutions go into this and bring out information that would sort of put the people at ease.
Let's get into the newspapers now. Today we're tellingly missing out on the Daily Graphic and the Ghanaian Times newspapers, but definitely a stack more to get into. Republic Press is the paper I'm going to be starting with this morning. It says, land guards terrorize Mensa Chrome residents. The full details on page 4. Military police take over this year's Ojura Festival. There's also September 21 declared public holiday, and Nkrumah Memorial Day declared a holiday. Of course, we used to celebrate that as Founders Day, founder apostrophe S. Of course, now we have the August situation when it comes to, so I'm talking about the month August when it comes to Founders Day, the plural form. AG tightens noose on Aisha Huang. Chief arrested for mining in bedroom. This one really got me thinking about how far people have taken this matter. But that story is on page 3. I'll get into that. And Queen starts journey home. And we know of all the pomp and pageantry and how she had even given some requirements about some of what she wanted to see at her demise, on her passing, I should say. So let's get into that story. Chief arrested for mining in bedroom. That story is on page 3. And Chief of Sifi Elubo and his brother have been arrested in connection with illegal mining in some compound houses in Sifi Elubo. The arrest was made by the Ghana Police Service. The chief, Nana Enini Bafo, and his brother, Kwejo Afi, with their accomplices at large, are reportedly involved in using sneaky dugout pits in compound houses to mine. It's continued that The suspects, Nana Enini Bafo and his brother, Kweju Afi, were arrested following police investigations of a video circulating on social media showing illegal mining activities in some compound houses of the town. According to the press release, quote, so far discovered dugout pits from the compound leading to the bedroom of the chief's brother. 4 other deep dugout pits have also been uncovered by the police in other houses in the same vicinity. I mean, other details in the story are there, but Suleimana, this just beats my imagination. This is like a real stretch. People mining within their compounds and all of that. And just to put 2 and 2 together, the Ghana Water Company Limited keeps telling us that our water turbidity levels are getting out of hand. At the Ivory Coast, our neighbor is now telling us that we should deal with Galamsey because our waters are beginning to pollute their waters. We also know about the situation where some cocoa farmers are being forced to sell their cocoa farms because people are mining around the farms to the point where the nutrients in the soil die and there's nothing you can do. And finally, cocoa farmers now have to mix their chemicals, fertilizers and others with sachet water, because the water sources around them are no longer viable. I mean, just put all of this together and tell me how, by any stretch of imagination, this can make sense.
Well, see, put everything together and what you get is a country that is on the brink of collapse. A country where it appears that nothing is working. A country that it appears has no future. A country where it certainly appears that leadership has lost control. And I just don't know how to put it. These are the realities. You know, if these things continue, what it means is that we are just devastating this country and future generations would have no future. The environment will be gone. Water bodies will be gone. The morals of society will be gone. The kinds of things that hold people together as a country would be gone. And all that would be left would be a culture of survival of the fittest. Do whatever you like, do whatever you can do to be able to make money in order to survive. And I have said that, look, this thing has continued till date because of leadership failure. Absolute. Because, look, the people who are over there in the regions and in the districts that are supposed to make sure that the laws are enforced, people do the right things, are themselves involved in these activities. And I'm not just simply talking about political leaders. In fact, political leaders, of course, are at the top. You have DCEs who are presiding over some of these things. You have regional ministers who know about this. You have chiefs, and as you have pointed out, who are supposed to be community leaders deeply involved in this illegal activity without caring a hoot about the consequences of what they are doing for future generations and actually for their own lives presently. Because how do you live without water? How do you survive without water? We have had our cocoa and other farming activities keeping us alive over the years. Our forest reserves, they are all gone. So if you have a country where forest reserves are going, water bodies are literally dead, because we keep talking about turbidity levels in terms of how to get our water purified for consumption. The reality is that these water bodies will not survive without aquatic life. And there is no way the fishes and the other animals and the kinds of things that are required by these water bodies to survive can survive in this environment. So we are looking on as our water bodies are being completely wiped out. We are looking on at as our forest reserves are going. So in a situation where people are doing these activities, often without guns, without bullets, and so on, we cannot deal with it. I am wondering if we were to be confronted with a situation as we have in Burkina or Mali, in terms of people engaging in unconventional killings, seizing communities, taking over communities, maiming and killing, what would have been our response? We are confronted with, Galamsey, where, people can easily be driven away and all of that. And yet we are struggling. And this is wiping away our country. And it appears that we have lost control. So I really don't know what to do.
Is that what makes you say that we are literally on the brink of collapse? That is telling to say, on the brink of collapse. I mean, people will tell you our situation may be bad, but is it that bad?
It is. Ben, the reality is that we've been talking about our water bodies. For how long do we want to continue to talk about this? A time may come that, I mean, we've gotten to the point where, yeah, there is no water body that is surviving for us to be able to say we are purifying. And so what? We'll resort to digging boreholes everywhere, importing water and all of that. Our forest reserves are literally gone. People are now prepared, as you have said, and I have heard it before, even in the northern part of the country, where people dig in their bedrooms. So the trench towards getting them into the Galamsey pits are actually starting from their bedroom. So they go through their bedroom to get into the pits so that people will not be able to discover what they are doing underground. So this is the extent to which people can go. And as I've said, look, if politicians are looting, if contracts are being inflated 100-fold, if our oil reserves, I mean, the GMPC is signing all manner of contracts, and people see this, how do you then prevent others who say, look, then there is this money under the ground, and whatever it takes for me to be able to get it out there, I would do that. That is where we have gotten to. And if this trend continues, look, we'll get to a point where it's about survival of the fittest. Whatever you can do to make money, do it. The laws, the person who is supposed to enforce the law would join you in doing it. And that has been what has been happening. We've been deploying the military, we've been deploying the police. And if you talk to people who are involved in these illegal mining, they will tell you, look, if the police come to site, yes, they will try to drive us away, but eventually you have to find something to, get them to go. And then
quick one. We know about what is happening with the Aisha Huang situation, but we've also been told that we should be careful how we deal with this situation because those galamseyers and community miners and all others, they also pay taxes that they contribute about 40% in terms of the revenue from gold. How do you react to that? Because they're saying, well, these activities may be going on, but it is raking in revenue for the state. We've heard, people in officialdom tell us about that. How do you react? The Lands and Natural Resources Minister has been, telling us about that.
No, I think that nobody is against mining. Look, my position has been that given the way our leaders, our politicians over the years have been looting our resources and persons who are connected to, officialdom, persons who are connected to the president as either family and friends, how much they are making in terms of looting our resources, the fishy contracts, the fictitious contracts, and all of that, and how much money they are making. Look at what we learned about Sir John and the properties that he acquired over that short period. So it is difficult for you to say that, look, if I am sitting on a land belonging to my father or my grandfather and there are gold deposits in there, I should allow those same politicians who have been stealing and looting our resources to be the same people to come and benefit. And therefore, I should also exploit mechanisms for making myself wealthy through that, which is deposited under the soil of land belonging to my grandparents. Of course, we do know that these resources are held in trust on behalf of the people by any government of the day. So we're talking about legalizing the process, doing mining in a way that does not destroy the environment, in a way that does not destroy the future of this country. That is all that we are talking about. So if we had a system that enables all mining activities in the country to be regularized, in a way it's tracked and is monitored. Whatever you have to do, reclamation is done, tree planting is done, you don't pollute the water bodies and all of that. Yes, absolutely, that is fine. Because, like I said, we've been mining in this country, Anglo Gold, Goldfields, Newmont came in, and all those other mining companies, and the country remains where we are.
Right.
Inequalities. Why? About legalizing the process and doing mining in a way that does not destroy the environment.
Let's just look at this one other story. We're a bit pressed for time, so we can look at some other stories in the papers. Bust margin will not be taken off anytime soon, Energy Minister assures. I'm talking about Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh. And the bust margin, it was moved from 6 pesos to 9 pesos as part of the fuel component per liter that you buy, 9 pesos going to bust. And he's justified that, saying that it has led to some commissioning of decommissioned facilities at Boston, all of that. But for you, Suleiman Abrahima, looking at the performance of Bust over the years, does it justify what we're pumping into it by way of our taxes?
I think the energy sector has been one area that, we've been seeing a lot of the loot. I wouldn't pretend to know a lot about whatever happens at Bust, except knowing what it exists to do. But I just want to bring in, a recent report that pointed to the fact that, look, we pay sanitation levy on every liter of fuel that we buy. And whether you are sitting in trotro or you are driving your own car, there is an extent to which you are a contributor to that levy. What have we been told? The entire 157 million or so money went into one company, into contracts that have been signed, payments being made, and yet our sanitation conditions remains as bad as it has always been. And it is the energy sector. So without knowing a lot about, the technicalities in that sector, what I know is that it is one area that the loot continues to take place. We read about the GMPC contracts. Not too long ago, I think only last week, I was reading about some analysis that is being done by ASEP and Imani, pointing to some payments that have been made by GNPC that certainly shortchanges Ghana. And so it's everywhere. Nowhere cool. Everywhere is gone basar.
Well, let's get into the final newspaper now. Ghana gives higher returns on investments. Kojo Ponkroma, Information Minister, says so. Anti-Galamsey task force to ramp up clampdown operations. That's according to Sector Minister Abu Jinapor. There's also Zondatech debunks false land looting accusations. Now, this interesting one. 1,487 kilometers of roads completed since 2017, an additional 5,404 kilometers ongoing in Eastern Region. That's according to Minister Seth Echampo. Then in other stories, very sad development on page 2. Mother, 3 children drown in pit on lagoon at Lakle, Vikope. Very sad development there. There's also Lower Manya MP, 15 others summoned for alleged power theft. And there is new police recruits warned against misconduct. So you can see, digesting the stories, new police recruits are being warned against the misconduct that we see. One good thing that I've seen now, on the back of government giving the police service these visibility motorbikes, I'm sure you've seen them. They appear to be pretty visible on many major stretches. You would see them not interfering with anything, sometimes just parked. And you know what that does to the psyche of people. Anyone trying to do the wrong thing would see them and not, go ahead. But quickly, the ECG has issued a writ of summons to Mr. Ebenezer Tay Labi, the Member of Parliament for Lower Manya constituency, and 15 others for allegedly using power illegally. Ms. Sechiwa Mensah, ECG Tema Regional Public Relations Officer, disclosed this to the Ghana News Agency that the illegalities were detected during routine checks on the company's meters at Lolonyokpong, Odumase in its Krobo district. Let's look at that together with this development. We've constructed this number of roads, many more to be constructed. We're in the 3rd year of roads. Are you seeing the impact, Suleimana?
Well, maybe in other regions things are being done, but of course, people continue to complain about the bad nature of their roads. It's absolutely impossible for any government to be able to deal with all the road issues in our country. But of course, we would all wish to see more being done, because even within Greater Accra, you get in some areas and you realize that the roads are not in a good shape. You travel across the country, particularly in the farming areas, and you realize that, these people have been struggling producing our cocoa and all the other foodstuffs, and yet one of the most difficult things for them is how to get their food stuff onto the market because of bad roads. So yes, it's good to hear that this number of roads or road network has been completed in the Eastern region. And I believe that it's about the same in other regions. So we would just encourage government to do more in that sector. The story about the MP and others, being summoned for power theft, I think is a serious one. And indeed, if it turns out to be true, then especially the MP needs to really be taken on very, very seriously. And I would want to see the law take its course fully, if indeed it is the case, and particularly with the involvement of the lawmaker, who then would have been a lawbreaker. I think that it's serious when the lawmaker breaks the law, than even if the ordinary person who may claim that, okay, I was not aware that I couldn't do this. So let's wait and see what happens, whether it's a genuine and true story, or they have an explanation to give that would make sense.
Right. And that's been a troubled area as far as power theft and reconnectivity is concerned. Let's get into the Daily Guide newspaper now. We can't register everyone before deadline. That's according to NIA boss Professor Ken Atefua. I'm getting into that story. AG slaps Galamsey Queen with fresh charges. Story on page 3. Otumfuo speaks to King Charles, and Aisha Huang, not our in-law, Okujeto Ablakwa, member of parliament for Norton, saying that. So let's take a quick look at some of these stories. And the Attorney General has slapped illegal mining kingpin and Huang, aka Aisha Huang, with 4 fresh charges for engaging in illegal mining at Bipotinting in Amansie Central District of the Ashanti region without a valid license. The Chinese national, who is often referred to as Galamsey Queen, has also been charged for an illegal re-entry into Ghana after her deportation in 2019, and also for illegally employing foreign nationals. She has been charged with 1 count of undertaking a mining operation without a license. She's also been charged with another count of facilitating the participation of persons engaged in a mining operation contrary to Section 99(2)(a) and 3 of the Minerals and Mining Act 2016. That's 2006, I beg your pardon. Again, she has been charged with illegal employment of foreign nationals contrary to Section 24 of the Immigration Act. And of course, we know she was hauled before the Accra High Court. Let's also look at the other story. So apart from that one, some interesting foreign stories I just want to us to look at. Senegal's president appoints first PM since abolishing post in 2019, and former foreign minister Amadou Ba has been given that position. And shameful, UN denounces exclusion of Afghan girls from school. You know, Suleimana, that since the Taliban took over, it's a return, and the girls are unable to go back to school after all the gains that were made over time. You can share with us your quick reactions to these stories.
Well, I think among all that have been read, my interest is in the NIA story.
Yes, I did promise I would get into that. Let me just quickly give some detail to that so you can go ahead with that. Just to be fair. All right, so it says, the National Identification Authority has disclosed that it cannot register all SIM card holders before the deadline given for registration. According to the NIA, with about 2 million people aged 15 and above left to be registered, it is impossible for these people to be captured before the end of the month. Of course, Sule, you know that is tied to the SIM re-registration exercise and how September ending is supposed to be the ultimate deadline. Quick reactions.
No, I think that, yes, we have to understand the position of the NIA. It takes quite a lot of effort to be able to do all this within the period that has been stated. And I think that the job done by the NIA is quite commendable. It is not the first time that there has been an effort to have a national identification system. It started during President Kufuor's time, and I remember Professor Dumo was made the head of the institution that was supposed to undertake this registration exercise. It turned out not to work. Under NDC, I think some attempts were made. It couldn't materialize. And then under this government, we've seen the NIA, take up the job and has, done a tremendous work on the basis of which the SIM registration exercise and bank validation and all the other things are happening. So certainly the NIA has done a great job. I think where the problem is coming from is the Ministry of Communication, where the minister is acting as if she is managing a private business and deciding to make certain decisions as though we are all, under her command and control.
Right.
We've been in this country operating this SIM card. There was a point where there was no registration required. It got to a point, then people were required to register their SIM cards with their telcos. And so even before this NIA process of, linking up your SIM card with the NIA data, I mean, a lot of people had their SIM cards registered, because if you did mobile money, you would notice that it is your name that pops up. If you're sending money to someone, whether they've been linked with the NIA data or not, you will get the person's name. Of course, there were recalcitrant people who were still, maneuvering and using SIM cards that were not registered for the mobile money fraud and so on and so forth. That's problematic. But Ghana has not collapsed with that.
Right.
And so I believe that if the NIA is unable to register people, what can be done is to say, look, at least for a start, every SIM card must have been registered with the mobile network operator. So that if there's a SIM card that is not registered with a mobile network operator, certainly that is a SIM card that cannot be, allowed to continue to be active.
Right.
So maybe by September or by October or whatever, we would block SIM cards that are not registered with the telcos. In other countries, all that is still required is your registration with your network operator without this linking with a national database.
Right.
But as I've said, the Minister for Communication acts as if she has the powers to be dictatorial, to be autocratic, and then tells us that she is reluctantly extending a deadline, as if it's a company established by herself and she decides to do what she wants.
I guess we can have a chat on this forever when it comes to, and I see how that rubs you off the wrong way. I see it on your face. Right.
It's quite surprising.
So Sule, I'm just reading these headlines. If you have any reaction, it will have to be in 20 seconds. Mohammed's promised to repeal Article 71, cheap political talk of a power-thirsty fellow. That's the Ghanaian publisher on page 2. Special visa plan for Ghanaian students, U.S. ambassador reveals. And China, Nigeria, top non-citizen Ghana card holders list. That's according to the NIA. In 20 seconds, final thoughts, and it's a wrap.
Well, the issue of ex gratia is a critical one. It's one that really undermines the development of our country. Looking at the last regime of President Akufo-Addo, for example, the people who may have benefited from ex gratia, and it is not just them alone. Since the current Speaker of Parliament has been in Parliament since the beginning of our Fourth Republic. How many times has he taken ex gratia, for example? So it's an important conversation to have, and we can talk about it as being cheap, but it's up to us as citizens to push the agenda to ensure that even this government may then take the steps to repeal or remove all those obnoxious provisions in our constitution.
Right. Thank you so much, Suleiman Abraham. It's a conversation we're going to keep up. Thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Suleiman Abraham is, of course, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. But up next, we have sports, and there's a whole lot coming your way as we tell you about some more of what Palmer has been sharing with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. Sports up next.
Good morning. Welcome to AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. Let's start with some local stories. Kumasi Asante Kotoko have been knocked out of the CAF Champions League following a 3-1 loss on penalties to Burkinabe side FC Kadiogo. The Techiman Warriors won the first leg 1-0 in Cotonou and also lost 1-0 at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium, forcing the game to go through penalty shootout, where Seydou Zebo's men lost 1-3 on a penalty. And it means that Asante Kotoko's quest to qualify to the group stage of the CAF Champions League for the first time since 2007 was unsuccessful. Still, on local stories, a 2019 GFA presidential aspirant, Wilfred Kweku Osei, has alleged that GFA President Kurt Okreku claims he will not clear him to contest FIFA GFA elections. According to Wilfred, the president of the football governing body, insists that the decision of the normalization committee to disqualify him from contesting the 2019 GFA election would be upheld. There were many who had said that the GFA president, through the ethics committee, can clear Palmer to be able to contest future GFA elections. But he claims the FA president insists he will not be eligible comes 2023.
Cryptocurrency thing.
Is it a cryptocurrency company?
You go and sign an illegality and you say you have signed sponsorship. It's an illegality. SEC has pronounced, the Bank of Ghana has, they've also given their position on cryptocurrency. Why would you do that? That every sponsorship that is coming to the FA, there's a question mark on it. The same happened to the Macron deal. Then it metamorphosed into Temple. We knew. Some of us, we knew for a fact that we were buying our own balls. FA was using our own money, to buy balls for us. Yes, they say Macron was giving a sponsorship. How is that possible?
You're kind of suggesting that there are so many wrongs at the FA, and I don't really know what to make of it.
Before you sign a deal, you see, Nabila, as any leader, somebody asked me, why do you think you'll be a better leader? I say, one, the quality of the decision is very important. Then you surround yourself with quality people. I've forgotten the management, somebody who defined management, said, you are managing people. So if you have bad people following you, the kind of information or decision that you make.
So CAT has bad followers?
The quality is low.
CAT has bad followers.
Otherwise, why would you go and be dealing with cryptocurrency and say I've brought sponsorship? It's just like our former headmaster who went and
so
brought
would you want to replace CAT?
Results.
Would you want to replace CAT as GFA president?
We are not there yet. I've not considered any political change in my fortunes.
But even if you're not there, based on what Cass said,
I'm hearing he says he will never clear me. Anybody who tells me
who will never clear
you? Anybody who tells me, I say, oh, tell him that I'm not subjected to his clearance or not. No, that is raising himself too much above a certain level. No, he should lower himself.
Do you have issues with CAT?
No, not at all.
Have you ever fought him at an ESCO meeting?
We have engaged in exchanges, but Kwesi stopped it.
You are going to fight?
No.
It means that you've had issues with him for many years. So most of these things you are saying, people can just look at it and go like,
no, there was a
this
report,
man already has issues.
There was a report that he vehemently kicked against it. And I was going to respond, and Kwesi stopped me. Because he knew that what will come out of my mouth
but the CAS verdict can clear CAS verdict, because CAS verdict also said that the normalization committee had the power to disqualify you.
Me?
Yes.
But
based on the things they raised.
Can you point to any part of the report that is suggesting or implicating me that I cannot contest for future elections? Point to one.
No, there's none. It means that you're hopeful. You're hopeful that you can contest.
I say I will never impose myself
the next elections,
on people.
The next election is 2023. If you're not contesting, do you want Kate
I will support another candidate, not Kate. That one, somebody who will do such a thing to my club, now I'll go and support him. I'll be a hypocrite to be doing that.
Is that why you were part of the team that went and met in Kumasi and wanted to change
They say it's payback time.
Who is paying who?
For Dreams, what happened to Dreams? It's payback time. That's why they are doing all those things. I don't care. Nabila, football cannot put pegs to my progress.
Wilfred Kweku Osei Palmer speaking there. And if you have missed that conversation, go on my Joy Newsroom YouTube channel and watch the extensive conversation that we had there. Let's do Ghana Premier League stories. And former Wafa defender Konede Iyadom, who made his debut for Accra House of Folk since completing his switch, rose highest to not home the equalizer as the Phobians drew 1-1 against Great Olympics in the Manchester Derby. Also at the Theatre of Dreams, Dreams FC secured a victory over newcomers Kotoko Royals.
Here's Glasson Awako. He goes down and wins the first foul of the afternoon for the Phobians.
Abdul Bashiru delivers. Adumaku heads the ball out.
Yeah, it's a really good ball into the box there, but Adumaku just had to check his run and make sure that he was...
Olympics have the opening goal. What a mistake from the hearts of a back line. Great Olympics jumps into the lead. Abdul Razak Yusuf. Confusion at the back for the Phobians. Emmanuel Mensah. The pressure came from those two attackers, and Mohamed Al Hassan and his goalkeeper completely giving this one away.
Yeah, difficult to see what happened there. We were very much focused on the free kick that had been taken, because then it was a goal kick. Hartlepool trying to play out from the back there and play themselves into trouble. It's going to be Yadon who's trying to find his goalkeeper with a square pass. It's a terrible square pass.
It's the Bontin's corner. Kredu's header, and he gets the equalizer. He redeems himself. Kredu Yadon, what a debut to remember. He gets the equalizer with 2 minutes from full time. Kredu Yadon has indeed arrived in the capital. It's Hartlepool 1, Olympics 1.
Cheers and joy from the Hartlepool fans. The place has exploded, and it is as good as the header from Kennedy Yadam. It's from around the penalty spot. What a connection from him with the head. Brilliant header from Kennedy Yadam, the new boy who announces himself to his home crowd with a magnificent header to actually.
Esubontin delivers this time to the far post. Kabas header. Mohamed Al Hassan is there. Barnier, he goes down in the box. No penalty. There was an appeal and a shout. Dreams FC with the opening goal here. At the theatre of dreams, Ali Uzaif arriving at the right place at the right time.
Second half has been better. They've been sharper. They've been piling a lot more pressure, and the Kotukurians have been sitting deep. Great show of strength there by Dede. Just held this man off to turn him around and just put the ball in a good space. Nobody closing in around the goal scorer Ali Uzaif. And all he had to do was to make sure he was getting enough on the effort to find the back of the net. It's an important goal for Dreams. They've been knocking a lot better in this second half, and
Thank you very much for joining me once more on Drive Safe. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. I am back at Top Tech Transport and Logistics, and you know exactly why. We're trying to cut down the carnage on our roads, and we've been talking about lights, headlights, tail lights, and the different dynamics of them, when to use them, how to use them, and all of that. Now today we're getting into another aspect of the lighting in a car, another aspect that requires the lighting of a car, and it has to do with night driving. And for some of us who use glasses and stuff, it can be pretty tricky. If you know, you know. But right before we get into it, how about we find out how much exactly you know? So you think you know, eh? Check out this signal. Do you know what it means? All right, so you have the possible answers there. At the tail end of this segment, Drive Safe, we're going to be finding out what the correct answer is. Do stay with us now as we host Mr. Cecil Gabra, CEO of Top Tech Transport and Logistics. Always refreshing having you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Right.
Today we're getting into night driving, and I just started with a bit about glasses. For those of us who are four-eyed, who need extra pairs of eyes, and need tricky situations. And so you see with my glasses, I have what they call blue block and all of that, just to cut down on the level of light entering my eyes and all that. But it's really tricky driving at night. What are the major things we should know while driving at night to maintain our safety and to also guarantee the safety of other road users?
Well, night driving is a whole different game altogether. It is really stressful. Now at night, even you see blue and you think it's purple. You see red, it gives you another color. Contrast will fall. You're looking at the edge of the road to drive. And then there you come with a big, car with a high lights on you. I mean, blinding you. Sometimes you're driving and you just go blind for a while and you need to park because someone has thrown his powerful lights.
It's happened to me before.
So night driving is very different. You need a whole, preparation towards the night. And preparation must come from you first. What do? Do you have good eyesight? If you don't have good eyesight, don't drive. And that is why DVLA has introduced that every 2 years, go and renew your license. People don't understand it. So night driving is very different, and that is what DVLA is saying, that after every 2 years, if you're going to renew your driving license, you need to go through a lot of examinations. And then one is that you need to go for an eye examination before you get a sticker. If you look at this driving license that I'm holding, I mean, this is the very latest driving license. But if you look at the back of it, these are stated there that every 2 years, go and do your eye test, and then you get a sticker. It is for a purpose, that is why. For other countries like the European license, it is maybe 6 years, 10 years, 12 years. But our road safety regulations, and then to be precise, the LI 210 states that your eyes must be looking at least 25 meters during the day, which means that you should see the number plates of the vehicle in front of you. That's number one. So that is a preparation for you yourself as a human being, and you must not drink at night, or you must not drink and drive. Yes, you shouldn't have any issue of concentration purposes where you will not be able to concentrate. Night driving is limited. You cannot drive more than 60 kilometers even you're on the highway. Your speed is limited. 60 kilometers per hour, let me put it that way. That's your vehicle.
You're talking about the speed?
Yes, the speed of your vehicle must not exceed that limit. Other than that, it's going to be an issue where you are going to kill human beings. Whilst you are driving, you need the street lights, and if there are no street lights, you need the road markings. The road markings are there for you to, guide you to drive. Okay, that's why they are called road markings, and they are very different. At another time, we'll go through what the road markings mean. But however, you must see the road markings, and now as you're driving at night, your focus must both be on the road markings and in front of you. Don't look at any vehicle. If you look at any vehicle, you have the situation where you get blind. So night driving is really different, and in other cases where you don't see the road markings, you must look also for the cat eye, right? The cat eye is an equipment which is installed in the middle of the road. As you are driving and you throw your light, it gives you that reflective nature for you to notice that you are not driving away from your lane, you are still in your lane.
And when you're veering, you will know.
Precisely. Now, most pedestrians are knocked down at night because of the colors that we wear at night. That's also one thing. And I always have my poem for night driving. And it goes simply like that, that as black as we are, we wear black clothes, and then we try to cross the black road, and here you are with a Mercedes. Of course, a black Mercedes being driven by a black man, sorry. And if you are not careful, you'll be knocked on the black road, and your burial will be attended by people who wear black, and of course, you go down in the black
into a black hole. Or But if you look at someone as dark-skinned as I am, so basically the caution is, if you know you're
wear bright colors,
you're going to be crossing the road at night, you are dark as I am, bright colors.
Wear bright colors always, and the brightest that you could wear is white, yellow, and if it's even good, wear a reflective vest to at night when you are walking or when you want to cross the road. Or else you will be knocked down, and then that will be the end of you. So night driving is a different thing, and if you have weaker eyes, please don't try to drive. Now, accidents do occur between the hours of 6 p.m. and 4 a.m.
Mostly.
Yes, mostly, and this is the darkest period. And of course, at dawn also you have people driving very reckless, and they may crash you to death. So before you drive at night, there's one thing that you should know. Clean your windshield. You can also clean it with either baking soda. Just drop it off your windscreen, and it takes all the grime away from your windshield. That's a very serious tip. Make sure that your washer fluid has a lot of liquid. People put hard soap. No. If you don't have the right soap, just drop in your kitchen soap, that is the liquid soap, and add a little bit of water for it to be slimy. Your windshield must be very clean, and also clean your lights. You need to clean your lights very well before you set off.
It's been another fantastic session, and today we've been learning about driving at night. Interesting, huh? The things we've learned, and especially the bit about crossing the road at night. You're going to buy bread and all of that. Don't lose your life over bread. Yeah, so don some bright colors. I never knew that. I've learned something. I hope you have too. This is how we end Drive Safe with me, Benjamin Akakpo. I've been here with Mr. Cecil Gabra of Top Tech Transport and Logistics. Always remember to drive safe. But right before we end, so you think you know, here's the answer to this segment for today. Well, thank you for staying with us on the AM show. And right after learning how to drive safe, some of the latest dynamics, of course, we're getting into our big stories. And we start with that one-on-one, tete-a-tete, if you like, with Sammy Gyamfi, the National Communications Director of the NDC. It's a bare-it-all conversation on the state of the party, briefly, but of course, other pertinent matters from the economy to Galamsey to other matters of national scope and interest. We're joined by Sammy Gyamfi, National Communications Officer of the NDC. Sammy, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, my brother.
It's good to have you.
Good to be here.
That smile of yours, how do you keep it all the time? Even when you are very serious?
We try to always look at the positive side of life because when there is life, there is hope. And, God has been gracious and kind. And so in spite of the challenges we are confronted with as a people, as a nation, we still have to be grateful for the gift of life. And that is why you always see me smiling on the screens.
Sammy Gyamfi getting all philosophical. If you see him smiling, it's because once there's life, there's hope. Doom Spiro Sparrow. Let's start off the conversation, and it's going to be a hard 1 hour. I want us to bite into the issues hard. The NDC, what is the current state of your party in opposition? You're seeking to regain the reins of power. The NPP is seeking to break the 8. What's the NDC shaping up like?
Well, the NDC is on track. We are on track to rescue our beloved country from the shackles of the incompetent, insensitive, wasteful, and reckless Akufo-Addo government come December 2024. Since the 2020 elections, we have embarked on a series of activities as a party, and those activities have reached their climax as we speak. We are through with the regional retreats we held in all the regional capitals and the various appraisals and assessments we did of our performance relative to the 2020 elections. We are also through with the outreach programs we embarked upon in all the regions of this country, particularly in the Eastern and the Ashanti regions. The time is now set for us to undertake our internal elections. Already we are through with our branch elections, with just a few to go in the Ashanti and Eastern regions. We hope to conclude that by the end of this week so that we can open nominations for constituency elections in all constituencies of the country later this week, sometime Thursday, 22nd, 23rd of this month, and wrap up the process with an election on the 22nd and the 23rd of October next month. Right after that, even before that process, that constituency election timetable is concluded, we would have open nominations for regional elections as well, and we'll be holding the elections itself in November. It is our hope that by the 18th of December, we would have concluded all our internal elections, would have been through with branch, constituency, region, and national elections. So far, so good. We're on track. More importantly, we are actively disseminating our superior messages to the Ghanaian people through the various platforms that we have to demonstrate to the Ghanaian people that the National Democratic Congress is a far better alternative to the clueless and reckless regime we have on our hands. And so we are optimistic that come December 2024, majority of the electorate of this country will repose their confidence in us once again, so that we can restore this country back to the path of true development and progress. It's been a long time we had that happening in this country under the bad leadership of President Akufo-Addo and his vice, Dr. Bawumia.
I have a quick question for you on, what the NPP experienced from the grassroots right to the top when they had their elections. We saw what happened. There were a few scenes here and there, some things bordering on rioting and all of that at different stages. We saw what happened even gearing up for the national conference and allegations here and there. But even before you get to that, you use the word incompetent, and I've noticed that communications, the communications grouping of your party seems to use that word a lot nowadays. Is it because that worked against President Mahama, so to speak? It painted a picture of incompetence of the former president? Is that why you're also latching on to it?
No, not at all. We call this government incompetent. We call them clueless. We call them reckless and wasteful, insensitive, dishonest, because that is who they are. We are not just making up tags for tagging sake. We are describing them by who they are. If you have a president who has demonstrated, even in recent time, that he lacks the mental capacity, the mental intelligence to govern.
When you say the president lacks the mental capacity and intelligence to govern, you know what our constitution says? You're a lawyer.
Yeah.
And it talks about this exactly, that if the person who is at the helm of affairs is incapacitated to that level, he would not even rule. So aren't you bordering on a very slippery slope here when you suggest that he lacks the capacity? Because he's there performing his work.
The Constitution doesn't say that he will not even rule. It says that he must not be allowed to rule. It is a ground for the removal from office of the president under Article 69.
Are you suggesting that Akufo-Addo is mentally unfit to be leader?
Exactly. But my brother, if you have a president who cannot write a simple message of condolence, tell me.
You're talking about Queen Elizabeth.
Exactly.
And her demise.
We all saw him at the UK High Commission signing the book of condolence that has been opened in memory of the late Queen Elizabeth II. And the president could not put his thoughts together to write a simple 1 paragraph or 2 paragraph or maximum 3 paragraph message of condolence in memory of the Queen.
And Sammy, on the back of that,
he had to copiously copy from notes that have been prepared for him by his handlers. Clearly, this is not a president who has what it takes to govern this country. The country is on autopilot because the president lacks that mental fortitude to govern, and that is what has played out few days ago. I mean, at the UK High Commission, you don't need any more evidence to come to the conclusion that we are being governed by a bunch of people who are totally clueless, they are incompetent, they don't have what it takes to govern, and that is why they keep on shifting responsibility for their own failings. When they took over the reins of government, this was not the state of our country. We had an economy.
And we'll get into the economy. Yeah. I don't want us to, put the cart before the horse. But just to, I'm giving you opportunity to really dissect this, because we know the pressure under which our leaders are. Within the last how many days? No. I just want you to contemplate this.
Well,
I was in. No. Relax. Good. I was in the Netherlands, and Mr. President came there for the GCA's summit. After that, I think he went to Belgium. I think after that, he went to another country. Before he came to Ghana, did the Volta Regional Tour and all of that. The pressure under which our presidents, the former presidents Mahama, Atta Mills, Rawlings, Kufuor, and Nana-Addo operate means that there are times when, yes, some things will happen and they may need assistance. Are you saying that just on the basis of that, you feel he is mentally incapacitated? I think that is rather strong.
So are you suggesting that when you are stressed, when you're working under pressure, it affects your intelligence and your mental capacity to write simple grammar?
Have you ever got stumped before?
You made mention of our former presidents who worked under similar, conditions, like President Akufo-Addo. Which of these former presidents had to copy copiously from already prepared notes in signing books of condolence? Which of them? Is it President Kufuor? I mean, currently, all across the world, heads of states are writing messages of condolences and signing books of condolences in memory of Queen Elizabeth II. Which of the presidents, even look at the presidents of our neighbors, or presidents of African countries, presidents of the nations of the world, have you seen signing a book of condolence while copying copiously, word for word, from an already prepared notes? Which of them? So is President Akufo-Addo the only one working under pressure, working under stress? That certainly cannot be a reasonable excuse. The truth of the matter, and you can speak to those who work closely with President Akufo-Addo if they will be honest with you, the man doesn't know what time it is. He has put this country on autopilot. He's not governing, he's chilling, flying around the globe in ultra luxurious and hyper expensive private jets. That is all he cares about. He cannot even put his thoughts together and share the memories he has for the times he visited the Buckingham Palace or met with the Queen or visited Number 10. He cannot write, as somebody who has lived in the United Kingdom and has strong ties with that country and has visited the country on several occasions, even as president. He cannot write a simple 1-paragraph or 2-paragraph message of condolence. I am telling you that if Ghana was another country, President Akufo-Addo would have been made to resign, because clearly he lacks that mental fortitude and intelligence to govern, and he has demonstrated that beyond every doubt.
Well, point made. Your opinion, of course. But let's get into the next point I was making. We all saw the problems that the MPP encountered from the grassroots all the way to the national conference that they held. And at a point when you were criticizing them, I mean your party, they said, well, wait, yours is coming and we'll see how you fare. How prepared are you to avoid some of the challenges? At least you have the benefit of hindsight.
Well, so far, like I said, so good. We are on track. We've not had any significant challenges with the process. The branch elections have been largely peaceful. We only had 1 or 2 pockets of disagreements and controversies in 2 areas of the country, which the leadership of the party has intervened and resolved amicably. And so we are hoping that the constituency, regional and national elections will follow suit and be fair, transparent and peaceful. And so I can assure you and the good people of Ghana that we will comport ourselves well, like we have always done as true Democrats who believe in internal democracy, divergence, contest, and so on.
It's interesting because up north, I think it's in the northern region where your party chairman passed on, and there were chaotic scenes following that. I think the vice president was asked to act, vice chairman asked to act, and people resisted that. Your party office was vandalized, and we see pockets of different things happening. I just want to conclude on this as far as your internal politics is concerned. We see Elvis Efria Ankra also wanting to go, take on Esiedun Kitsia, among other things. We've heard of the Ahonto project and Dr. Kwabena Dufour, trying to position himself as well. So many things happening within your party. Again, I'll come back to you. What's cooking in the NDC's kitchen? Can you deal with all of these things ahead of 2024?
Well, this is very normal in every political party. Once it is time for an internal contest, people put themselves up for various positions that they believe they can serve in, okay, and work for the progress of the party. So I'm not surprised that some colleagues of mine are lacing their boots to contest for various positions. I'm not too sure, though, whether Elvis is contesting the general.
I've read a few things, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Because the general, well, I don't have the permission of any of these people to speak to what their intentions are and the positions they'll be contesting for. I speak for the party and not any candidate, but you may want to check with your sources internally to.
I guess only time will
get
tell.
Your facts.
Only time will tell on this.
Relative to some of these things, but. So far, there's not been much acrimony, even among potential aspirants. It's been a family affair. You see people who have intentions of contesting for the same position, even working together for the party, and that is something that I comment and I would want to encourage. And so, rest assured, the process is going to be transparent, free and fair. It's going to be peaceful. It's going to be cordial. There may be a few hitches, few cases of acrimony, attacks here and there, which is to be expected. But at the end of the day, the NDC as a corporate body will emerge victoriously. And we will close our ranks, unite, bring all hands on deck, on board, to ensure that we succeed in capturing power come December 2024, because the entire nation and even future generations are looking up to us.
Right.
People are tired of the excruciating economic hardships. They are tired of the free fall of the cedi and the cluelessness of the Bawumia-led economic management team in arresting same. They are tired. The young people of this country are tired of the worsening unemployment rate in the country, the high and unbearable cost of living in the country. And they are yearning for a rescue, and the only hope they have is the National Democratic Congress, because they know that it is under us that they will see true development and progress in all spheres.
It's interesting because the MPP's motto is development in freedom, and you're talking about development in progress.
One is a slogan, one is a mere cliche, a mere motto.
Right.
But to us, it is a real thing.
All right.
And we will.
Let's get into the economy. I see you're eager to bite into that, and so am I. I want us to critically look at what your alternatives are. But before we get into that, I recently had an interaction with the IMF's chief on the back of why we were going to the IMF. We're going to play a bit of a video suggesting what she felt was the reason we were going to the IMF. Let's watch this. So we now have Kristalina Georgieva, head of the IMF. Thank you so much for joining us. Two quick questions. One, what are your expectations ahead of the summit? The West has always promised we will do, they've never done. And secondly, Ghana is hoping for an IMF program at the start of next year. How close are we?
To your first question, I speak on behalf of my institution, the International Monetary Fund. Promises we make, we keep. We made a promise to mobilize resilience and sustainability trust and start with at least 40 billion. We have delivered on this promise, and among the first countries to be beneficiaries will be African countries. And I would call on everyone recognize that it is a promise you must meet for your own people. Climate change is hitting everybody everywhere, and it is undermining global security. To your second question, I am very determined for us to indeed reach an agreement by the end of this year. We started very constructive discussions already, and to the people of Ghana, like everybody on this planet, you have been hurt by exogenous shocks. First the pandemic, then Russia's war in Ukraine. And that we need to realize is not because of bad policies in the country, but because of this combination of shocks. And therefore, we have to support Ghana because you're a member, you're a strong country, you have fantastic people, but also we have to support Ghana because your strength contributes to the strength of your neighbors. It contributes to a stronger world.
We asked for 1.5 billion initially. Now they're asking for 3 billion. Will we get it?
Let's go through the discussions and then we will know.
Thank you so much, madam.
Thank you.
Kristalina Georgieva is the IMF boss. But over to you, Sami. Now, you've been bashing government for poorly managing the economy. But even the IMF boss, you just heard her, says it's not because of bad economic policies, but because of a combination of exogenous shocks. In other words, external shocks like COVID-19, like the Russo-Ukrainian war. What do you have to say to that?
Well, first of all, let me make the point that as Ghanaians, we live and experience this Ghanaian economy on a daily basis. And so we know better how we got to where we are. We can better appreciate the economic malaise we have on our hands as a nation than any external institution, can appreciate. And so we do not need any IMF boss or World Bank director to tell us about the state of the economy we live and experience on a daily basis. That is number one. Number two, what the IMF boss has said, which is what you just played, is nothing strange if you understand international diplomacy and how these things work, particularly the relationship between the IMF and member countries that seek for bailouts from the fund. Go and check the Article 4 publication of the IMF on Ghana, which was published before Ghana sought an IMF bailout. And you would realize that that publication is at variance with the message that the IMF boss is singing now.
Many people have pointed to that.
Yeah, yes. Because there they were not only pointing to exogenous factors such as COVID-19 and the Russian-Ukrainian war being the primary factors that have brought the Ghanaian economy on its knees. They also attributed our economic mess to fiscal indiscipline and the ballooning public debt and so on and so forth. Again, even before we sought an IMF bailout, the World Bank, which is an affiliated organization to the IMF, had stated on public record, and here I'm referring to their country director, Mr. Laporte. He has said at a lecture at University of Ghana that Ghana's economy showed signs of serious challenges even before COVID-19. So one may ask, what has changed? What has changed is that now that Ghana has officially sought a bailout program from the fund, the IMF now owes a certain duty of care to Ghana. Okay, they owe a certain duty of care. They know that the problem we are confronted with is highly speculative. It's partly speculative, let me put it that way. Investors are listening to what the IMF will be saying about our economic position and what have conspired to bring us to where we are. And so any negative comments they make about the Ghanaian economy will have serious negative impacts on the Ghanaian economy. It may destroy the economy even beyond repair and even beyond salvation. Now, this is the reason why the IMF boss is sounding this diplomatic and all that. You see?
So she's just being politically correct.
Exactly, because I am a lawyer. Okay, if somebody runs to me after committing murder and I decide to represent the person in court and I go to court, I cannot stand on my feet and tell the judge how irresponsible and reckless and guilty. Even if that client of mine pleads guilty, I will make an argument for mitigation of sentence. You understand? It is so with
you owe the person that duty of care.
Exactly. If a person goes to if you go to a medical doctor for help and say you are diagnosed of a kidney or liver problem due to excessive alcoholism, the doctor will not look you in the eye and say, you are very irresponsible and reckless. You've wasted your life. You were drinking alcohol uncontrollably in your youth days. See how you have destroyed your lungs and all that. No, he will tell you, kind words of encouragement. It is part of our training as professionals. And so before we sought an IMF bailout, the IMF was speaking differently. After we sought that bailout and they have agreed to actually help us, and together with us, a program is being put together to see how the Ghanaian economy can be salvaged, they need to sound diplomatic, to send the right signals to the investor community who are watching. And that is why you have seen this variance, this departure from the original narratives of the IMF and the World Bank.
Sammy, very quickly, so people have pointed to the fact that even in the past, I mean, this has been the tangent. Even when you went to the IMF, similar, rhetoric coming from the IMF. But does that help us any? Because some have also said that by adopting these stances, the Bretton Woods institutions don't paint the correct picture of what our economies really are grappling with at any point in time. And that hurts us. It doesn't help us. Do you agree?
I agree with us. I agree with that. And that is why the former president is saying that, look, we all understand these things, okay? But it is time for you to be candid with the people and with the investor community, because until you diagnose the problem accurately and you address the problem, the government will continue on its path of fiscal indiscipline and financial recklessness, and we will get back to where we are currently. You see, before the Sri Lankan economy collapsed, the IMF was full of praises for the Sri Lankan government, praising them for fiscal discipline, an economic turnaround and all that, until the economy totally crashed. And so I support your position and those who say that these diplomatic narratives don't really help. It is important for us to be frank and candid, to be truthful about the real factors that have, plunged the Ghanaian economy into the catastrophic mess we currently have on our hands. And what are these factors? Number one, the unsustainable debt position of the country, the public debt position, which has been occasioned by the unprecedented high budget deficits this government has recorded, particularly in the year 2020 and in the year 2021. And you know that if your government is recording such high deficits of 15.7%, like we recorded in 2020, it can only be as a result of one thing: reckless expenditure. And if you spend what you don't have and you record these high budget deficits, that creates a hole in your economy that you must borrow to fund. And it is that excessive borrowing owing to reckless expenditure that has ballooned our public debts from 120 billion as of December 2016 to now almost 400 billion. That has moved our debt to GDP, which is a measure of our debt sustainability, from 56-57% as of December 2016 when President Mahama was leaving office to now almost 80%. So your public debt is no longer sustainable. Whereas you were using 10 billion Ghana cedis to service your debt in 2016, now you are using over 50 billion Ghana cedis to service your debt. And even before COVID, it had increased from 10 billion to 37 billion. We're using about 90% of domestic revenue to service our debt stock, even before COVID-19. You see, when people talk about COVID and the Russian-Ukrainian war being the primary reasons why we are where we are, I laugh. Because you see, Ghana is not an island.
But there are reasons, right? They are part of the reasons.
You see, COVID and the Russian-Ukrainian war only exacerbated an already bad economy. You understand? They have only aggravated an already bad economy.
So you mean we were already exposed and this only came to worsen the
You
exposure?
recall that when COVID struck, the president's address, in his first address to the nation, announced that his government was going to make available $100 million to start our COVID-19 response plan. And so he tasked the Minister of Finance, Ken Oforiatta, his cousin, to raise $100 million for Ghana's fight against COVID-19. Do you know that we were so broke at the time that the Ministry of Finance could not raise $100 million locally? We had to rely on the World Bank for the entire amount. They first gave us a loan of $35 million, and then we got another $65 million under the Garrett World Bank program. And so we were so broke before COVID that we could not even mobilize $100 million to start our fight against COVID-19 when COVID struck. Before COVID-19 struck, how were we faring relative to the strength of our currency, which is one of the major problems the business community and Ghanaians at large are facing today. In 2019, you will recall, the cedi had depreciated by 12.9% in 2019. That was before COVID. In 2016, if you want to use the Mahama era as a benchmark, the cedi depreciated by 9.6%. But even before COVID, we were doing depreciation of almost 13%. COVID rather even helped the situation because it reduced demand for dollars in 2020. So you realize that the cedi was relatively stronger in 2020 and 2021. But immediately that fizzled out, we saw the cedi depreciating again. And as we speak, the cedi has depreciated by over 30% for this year, 2022 alone. How can any objective mind blame the alarming depreciation of the cedi on COVID-19 when we know that the main reason for the alarming depreciation of the cedi is the huge capital flies out of our country? Investors are pulling out their monies. Why are they pulling out? Because our debt position is no longer sustainable. That is why we have been downgraded by all the sovereign credit rating agencies, Moody's, S&P, Fitch, to junk status. Our economy is now a baller economy. We have lost
Wouldn't
access.
you also agree that it's also because of where we have pegged our economy? Because a lot of the industry, services, look at the telcos, a lot of them are not owned by us. Of course, we know that Airtel Tigo recently, we had that infrastructure, so to speak, vehicle to own it nationally. But beyond that, you look at the major international MNCs in our country, and all of them are repatriating, the resources in hard currency. That is a big part of the problem. You can't run away from that. And that is not restricted to this
These are fundamental structural, issues that our economy has faced over the years. It's not a new phenomenon. And yet, in 2016, we had access to the capital markets. This government, when they took over, because the NDC bequeathed to them a strong and vibrant economy, they had access to the capital market. So that they have
You say a strong and vibrant economy.
Exactly.
They'll tell you about GDP growth. They'll tell you about all the other factors, including our debt.
Let me finish the first
strong
question.
and vibrant may not be what they would accept.
It's not about what they say, it's about what the facts say.
They'll tell you about how they had grown our GDP
if
when
we
they took over.
bequeath an economy to you, which in 2016 was projected to grow at 8%, because of the strategic investments, the visionary nation builder, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. No, let's go step by step. Had made in the oil and gas sector, bringing on board 2 additional oil fields, the 10 Sankofa fields. You understand? And you come, and because owing to this, these hydrocarbon assets coming on stream, these 2 oil fields coming on stream, you record a growth rate of 8%. Is that an achievement? Even before you took office, the economy was already projected to grow at that rate because of the solid work that had been done by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. What they had to do was to consolidate that growth with intelligent policies. Yet they went on a reckless expenditure spree. Look, in 2018, documents presented by this government to the IMF in 2020 for the $1 billion rapid credit facility that the IMF gave us when COVID struck shows that in 2018, we recorded a budget deficit of 7.5%. In 2019, we recorded a budget deficit of 7%. What does that mean? What that means is that even before COVID struck, this government was very reckless in its expenditure, such that they had crossed the acceptable threshold, fiscal responsibility threshold of 5% deficit, because it was this government who, in 2017, after taking office, told Ghanaians that the ex-War Mahama regime had been very reckless in 2016 with its expenditure, and that they were not going to be that reckless and indisciplined. They were going to pass a fiscal responsibility at which they indeed passed, which places a duty on government, specifically the Minister of Finance, not to exceed a budget deficit of more than 5%, of 5% of GDP. And that should he exceed that threshold of 5% deficit, he can even be censored by Parliament. Now, COVID struck, you go to the IMF, present them with a full picture of your economy. And we realized that contrary to what you told us that the budget deficit was 4.5% in 2018, it was actually 7.5% and so on. So what am I telling you? The economy was already in a bad shape. And I'm giving you facts and figures relative to the depreciation of the cedi before COVID. I've given you figures about our deficit. Even debt service had moved from 10 billion to 37 billion.
So you painted the picture for us.
The budget deficit, the debt to GDP ratio had moved from 56% to 64%. The construction sector had declined from a growth rate of 7.9% in 2016 to 6.5% in 2019 and so on.
The picture is clear as you
it is very
clear.
clear.
But let me get to this point. Anytime, a government is doing something, it's been said, even chief economists will tell you that it's not so much about the debt or your debt stock. It's about what you do with what capital inflows come to your country and whether these are self-sustaining. Now, let's walk through some of them. This government has a lot of flagship programs. Free SHS. Your party says it's not a bad thing. Your own, presidential candidate in 2020 says it's a good thing, but maybe there may be problems with implementation. There's 1D, 1F. In fact, I'm looking in today's Finder newspaper in the eastern region. The sector minister is talking about close to about 1,500 kilometers of roads that have been constructed, over 5,000 that are yet to be constructed. At the national level, many more thousands of kilometers of roads that have been constructed. Put that aside. You look at the employment and labor situation. The minister recently, Ignatius Bafwewa, told us that, look, about 5.3 million jobs have been created. Look, you look at other infrastructure, the Pokwasi interchange, among others. Would you say that the sums of money, the debt we owe, has not been, put to good use for Ghana?
If the debt that we have accumulated as a country in the last 5.5 years has been put to good use, it should translate in our ability to service those debts. It's as simple as that. As we speak, according to Bloomberg's economic vulnerability ranking, published sometime in July this year, Ghana is the second country in the world with the highest risk of debt default, second to El Salvador.
Yeah, that has been there for a while.
Exactly, the whole world. You understand? So why is it that our risk of debt default is increasing? It means that the loans we procured have not been put to good use. If they've been put to good use...
Is it as simple as that, Sami Jimfi?
It's as simple as that. Look, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and the Mills administration borrowed $1 billion from China under the CDB facility for what is the biggest factory in the history of this country, the Tuabo gas processing plant and the Ghana Gas Company. Apart from the hundreds of people these projects have employed, that project saves this country averagely $300 million a year. And as I speak to you, we are almost through with the repayment of that loan of $1 billion from China. That is what I mean by putting borrowed funds to good use, investing borrowed funds in productive ventures, self-financing ventures that can yield revenue to pay for those loans. I give you another example, Terminal 3, which is arguably the best.
At the KI?
Yeah, the best terminal you can find in the whole sub-region, West Africa. It was the Mahama administration that took a strategic decision to support the Ghana Airport Company by allowing them to retain 100% of the IGF, to improve their books so that they could borrow on the strength of their own financial books for that project. They borrowed on the strength of their own books without any support from central government per se, built that Terminal 3 project under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, a facility that processes about 2 million passengers a year. And as I speak to you, we are almost through servicing that debt, paying that debt. That is what I mean by investing in productive sectors of the economy, self-financing projects with borrowed funds. I can go on and on and on. The MPS port expansion project at Tema. It is a BOT arrangement. We are on track. So far, it has transformed the port. It has made it the biggest port in the whole of West Africa, created thousands of direct and indirect jobs. But at the same time, it is bringing in a lot of revenue, not just for the investors, but also for government.
So I see what you
within
mean.
a certain period of time, that will become the property of the state. Show me, with all the debt this government has accumulated, such strategic investments they have made. Not only in the aviation or maritime industry, but even in the area of health. This is the only government in the history of this country who have not been able to build a single district hospital as we speak.
There's Agenda 111 on the table.
And what is the status?
There's Agenda 111 on the
Agenda
table.
111.
And promises have been made about completing even all of them, if not the majority of them, by the end of this tenure. In recent times, I've forgotten which region, but Mr. President was there. I don't know whether it was the Volta region. I think it was the Volta region when he was in Ho, right before the bar conference and all of that, talking about the fact that these are going to be completed and work has started.
Agenda 111 was supposed to be, it was announced in 2020 in one of the addresses.
Yes, but that's not when the work started.
And that's not when hold on, and it was supposed to conclude in 2021. They failed to do so. By the time it was supposed to have been concluded, all the 111 hospital projects were supposed to have been completed. Not a single one has started. That is as at August 2021. They did another sword cutting again and promised to finish the 111 hospitals within 1 year. That 1 year has also passed.
We're being told
they have not even finished, hold on, they have not even finished one. And now they are telling you 2024. Yes, a question of amount to my TND. The people told you first 1 year by 2021. They shifted the goalpost to 2022. Now they are saying 2024. Look, these guys went to Labadi, demolished a functional polyclinic and promised the people that they were going to give them an ultra-modern hospital. It's been more than 2 years now. Go there.
All right.
So you've painted. Go to Shama.
Right.
The president cut a sword for the construction of the Shama District Hospital. It's been more than 2 years. Go there. Nothing is happening.
All right.
So not just hospitals. Again, despite being the most resource government in the history of this country, having had in excess of 500 billion Ghana cedis in total revenue, having had in excess of $11 billion in Euro bonds alone, and having had oil proceeds for 3 oil fields, the most resource government in the history of this country. They can't even boast of one secondary school that they have initiated and completed. They are not investing in education. They are not investing in health. They are not investing in productive ventures that can yield revenue to pay for the loans that we are contracting. And so you don't need to go far. Just even look at the growth rate of the construction sector. Whereas we're doing a growth rate of 8.4% in 2016, they were doing a growth rate of negative 4.4% in 2019. And as I speak to you now, they are still doing a growth rate for the construction sector, a negative growth rate for the construction sector. What that tells you is that they are not investing in capital expenditure. They are not investing in projects that can create jobs, create revenue, and pay for projects that can lead to the economic transformation that this country needs. Unlike what the ex-Wa Mahama administration did in every sector, whether in the area of health, in the area of educational infrastructure and all that. As for this government, it's been consumption. Even before COVID, this government was running the most obese government in the history of Ghana, and I dare say in the history of Africa.
So let me quickly ask you.
Let me just conclude this sentence. Having appointed in excess of 100 ministers and deputy ministers, how is COVID to be blamed for that? When the president was traveling in expensive private jets, okay? I mean, how can anybody blame that wastefulness on COVID? The Auditor General says that in the last 5 years, this government has supervised financial irregularity and losses to the tune of over 50 billion Ghana cedis. Last year alone, we recorded financial irregularities of 17.4 billion, according to the Auditor General. So the problem is the reckless expenditure, the excessive borrowing, and the wastefulness, the misplaced priorities of this government, and not COVID-19 or anything. In any case, just to conclude, so that we go to the next issues. This government has had in excess of 30 billion Ghana cedis to manage the COVID pandemic. The IMF has given them a total of $2 billion already. That could not save the country. It couldn't save the economy. The World Bank has given them in excess of $1.4 billion to fight COVID. That alone is $3.4 billion. Far more than what we are seeking from the IMF.
I mean, these ones are regurgitations that we've heard. I just want I just want 20 seconds.
But we need to regurgitate. We need to repeat this point consistently, so long as government is not willing to accept responsibility for their failings.
Okay, regurgitation accepted. Let me just ask you though, if I asked you in 20 seconds, and I'm sure the NDC has had time to really think about this. People ask, you are, constructively or destructively, criticizing government. What are your alternatives? In 20 seconds, what are the alternatives of the NDC?
20 seconds for economic alternatives.
I'll give you 1 minute.
What kind of an examiner are you?
1 minute.
I mean, if you
Maybe
read,
I could be a wicked one.
If you read,
But 1 minute.
if you were an examiner, President Akufo-Addo will never pass your exams because he always has to copy.
I don't think I'm examining
100%.
Yes.
You know, he has to copy what is already written for him, like he did at the UK High Commission.
Alternatives.
But I can do so in 1 minute. You see, if you read the speech delivered by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama at the Ghana at Crossroads lecture held at Kimpiski, he gave 14 policy alternatives for the consideration of this government. And I refer anybody to that. 14 alternatives. Again, if you read the lecture delivered by our ranking member for finance, Honorable Ato Forsen at UPSA, sometime 2021, he also gave more than 11 policy alternatives. We have said that given where we are now, the unsustainable debt position of the country, our only way out is a debt restructuring program that will give the country some fiscal space for us to maneuver, for us to be able to spend on other important things. We have spoken about government living within its means, cutting their coat according to the size of their cloth, which simply means government must be committed to cutting down its expenditure drastically while looking at innovative ways of mobilizing more revenue. And here I'm not talking about revenue mobilization measures such as the obnoxious e-levy, which has failed because it was bound to fail.
So let me ask you critically, right, just because you brought this up, in passing, should the
I'm not done with your
NDC...
first question.
No, I get you, but since you brought it up, should the NDC come to power, are you going to abolish the e-levy?
Oh, we've promised to do so. Our General Secretary has said so. We will abolish it. There are more innovative ways, you know, sensible ways of raising revenue without killing the Momo industry, the infant Momo industry, like this government has done.
Okay.
And that is what we'll do. We believe that if we get our acts together, property raise can bring in a lot of revenue for development of this country. We've spoken about the extractive sector and how we need to optimize revenue mobilization from that sector. And so you can read the People's Manifesto to get a hint, a sense of what we would have done differently relative to revenue mobilization. In our 2024 manifesto, we will be outlining even more measures relative to that. And so cut down on the reckless expenditure. Stop flying in expensive private jets when young people in this country cannot find jobs, when you cannot pay NAPCO beneficiaries their 9 months arrears, when people are struggling to make ends meet and all that. Live within your means. Cut down on the waste. Cut down on the financial irregularity and losses, the procurement breaches that the Auditor General is talking about, and put the meager resources of states to judicious use, particularly investments in the productive sector.
And that point you've
as I've said. And also, more importantly, stop spending bold funds on consumption.
Right.
Let's begin to see investments that can bring about job creation, economic transformation, revenue generation, and all that. That is what this country needs. And that is what His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the visionary nation builder, stands for. His record is there for everyone to see.
Let's talk Galamsey. In a way, the way it is being, exercised is hampering our development as a country in myriad ways. We can talk about turbidity levels, which are affecting, the water we even drink, and even affecting how much the Ghana Water Company Limited must put into processing our water. We're talking about, just today I was reading about a chief and his brother who apparently were digging in compound houses, even within homes. There's also the bit about how much we lose every year to this menace. But in other words, the lands minister has also told us that we get so much from Galamsey in terms of the taxes these people pay. When you look at the problem, it seems to be a never-ending one. What are the solutions the NDC can bring to bear to stem the tide of this problem? What are your alternatives? Because it appears this is not working.
What you need to succeed as a country in the fight against the menace of illegal mining is just one thing. It is called political will. That is what you need.
Under the erstwhile administration, was there political will?
Oh, you just asked a long question. Let me at least answer before you bring in another question. you need a political will on the part of the leaders of the country to fight illegal mining. And to answer your question, under the ex-Wal NDC Mahama administration, we had that political will. And that is why if you watch your colleagues, Araba Kumsin's editorial on Galamsey, she shows a picture of River Ankobra taken in 2016 and contrast that with a picture of the same river taken sometime in the year 2020. Go and watch that editorial and you will see the difference between these two pictures. Whereas under us, these water bodies were looking very clear, very, very clean. Today, they are looking more brownish than coffee, more brownish than Milo. Why? It is because the leaders of our country today lack the political will and commitment to fight Galamsey. They have never been sincerely interested in the fight since they took office. All the talk by the president about he putting his presidency on the line relative to the Galamsey fight was a ruse intended to allow his party, the New Patriotic Party, take over the illicit Galamsey trade. It was a scam, a fraudulent fight in the first place. They were never committed to it. And I give you evidence
he
to
said he
buttress
put
his
his
claim.
presidency on the line, and
Yeah.
you're accusing him of what?
Empty rhetorics. Cheap talk, not backed by concrete actions. He never meant it. It was all a scam. Because as far back as 2018, the Minister for Local Government at the time, Honorable Hejia Alima, is on record to have stated at an official government function for MMDCs that her ministry had information on MPP-appointed metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives who were actively engaged in Galamsey. The minister said she had the names of all these MMDCs and that she was going to publish their names and crack the whip and so on. It's been many years after. Not a single MMDC has been named and shamed in the list. Not a single of them has been dismissed or prosecuted for engaging in Galamsey. Why then won't you have DCs in Elembele, okay, actively engaging in Galamsey like it is happening now, where behind the residence of the DC of Elembele, Galamsey is going on in broad daylight.
Kwesi Bonzo, the DCE, has said that he rather, contrary to some of that rhetoric, is fighting Galamsey.
Go to his residence, go to behind his residence and go and see what is happening there. I have been there. Go to the Nkrufo Senior High School and go and see how people are doing Galamsey, MPP people doing Galamsey in broad daylight on a school land. The effrontery, the audacity to even bring Galamsey from the forest reserve, okay, right onto a school land in the middle of a town should tell you about the impunity going on relative to Galamsey. But not just that, let me give you more. We were also in this country when a presidential staffer and the secretary to the Interministerial Committee
You're
against
talking about
illegal
Charles
mining,
Bisu.
Charles Bisu, former MPP constituency secretary in the Western region, was caught on tape by his investigative journalist Anazare Miyaonas collecting bribes together with the personal assistant of the MPP Ashanti Regional Chairman, Andy Owusu.
Correct me if I'm wrong. He was cleared of that, wasn't he?
Cleared by who? Anas, who did that investigation, petitioned the then Special Prosecutor Martin Amidu. Even before Martin Amidu could commence investigations into it, the Tiwa Adodankwa led CID issued a statement that Charles Bisu has been cleared. Everybody know that that was a farce.
So he was cleared.
That was a sham. He was not cleared. He has not been cleared by the Special Prosecutor. In any case, there is video evidence of this gentleman collecting bribes from Chinese. At the time, a ban on legal small-scale mining was in force. Even legal small-scale mining was in force. And Ghanaians who were involved in legal small-scale mining were not working for 2 years. Some had their excavators burned. Some were shot. The MPP, First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joe Wise, is on record to have said that those engaging even small-scale mining at the time of the ban should be shot and killed. And yet, government officials who we pay with our taxes to protect the environment and to fight Galamsey. Go and check how much we spent on Operation Vanguard and Galamsey. Millions of Ghana cedis. These people betrayed our trust and became accomplices to Chinese and other foreign nationals in this illicit.
So, Sami, you've done an apt job in terms of painting what the metrics are, what the problems are, what are the solutions, and I ask you again as we wrap, what are the alternatives? I think the people of Ghana now want to know really. If you say this is wrong, what are you bringing on board?
Listen,
what are your
the alternative is to have a president with the political will to fight Galamsey. Hold on. That is all you need. Everything is leadership. Leadership is everything. All other things cost. Listen, if you have a president who will not condone criminality, okay, in exchange for money, like President Akufo-Addo was willing to do in the case of Aisha Wan, when his senior minister...
I don't think we heard him say that. His senior minister did...
But that was his senior minister. Has his government distanced itself from that statement? They said, so long as the Chinese were willing to give us some projects under the Sino-Hydro deal, it was okay for Aisha to be left off the hook, which is clearly what has emboldened her and her ilk to engage in Galamsey with brazen impunity. So what you need is the political will on the part of our leaders, that candor, that sincerity, that commitment, that we will crack down on Galamsey regardless of whose ox is God. Okay. Regardless of who is involved. And if officials of government and party officials or apparatchiks are found to be engaging in Galamsey, mining in our water bodies and all that, we will allow the laws to work. We will punish them to serve as a deterrence to others. President Mahama has said, and in fact, you can check our 2020 People's Manifesto, that our approach to the fight against Galamsey, which is what you are interested in, will be number one, placing a ban on illegal mining. Galamsey is already illegal, you don't have to ban it. Making sure that we train those engaging in Galamsey, build their capacities, and resource them to be able to do mining in a better way. We are not against mining. Right. After all, foreigners are mining, they are doing large-scale mining. Newmont is doing it, AngloGold is doing it. So Ghanaians should also be able to do mining. Right. But do the mining in a proper way. No mining in water bodies. Okay, even mining in forest reserves has to be checked. The proper technology must be used. The land must be reclaimed after the mining. We need to check these things. Either than that, we will destroy our environment, our trees, our water bodies, and in effect, we'll be destroying our own lives because water is life. Right. And it is said that when the last tree dies, the last man dies. So this is a very, very serious discussion. I can assure the good people of this country through this esteemed network that President Mahama will not condone appointees who steal, share, and for themselves 500 excavators like President Akufo-Addo has done. He will not shield government officials caught on tape, okay, to be engaging in Galamsey, like President Akufo-Addo did in the case of Frimpong Boateng, where we see the party Hiesika, Bunch, Charles Bisiu, and so on and so forth. We will make sure that the law works. What today they are calling community mining is actually MPP and Chinese mining. MPP apparatchiks have taken over Galamsey, and they are doing it actively, destroying our water bodies and all that with their foreign collaborators. We will not do that. Okay. Ghanaians have a right to go into mining, but let us mine in accordance with the Minerals and Mining Act of this country and best practices. Mine the right way, regulated the right way, such that we do not destroy the only environment we have been
I think we've got the thrust of your argument. One, Francis Adu, I think, sends in a message, and he's saying what happened when the NDC was in power. But that's, I think you've
I have told you that
summarized what
if you want to know what happened when the NDC was in power, go and watch Araba Kumsin's editorial on Galamsey. Compare the color of the river and Cobra as this independent journalist, okay, has put out. In 2016, under the Mahama government, compare that picture to the picture of that same river, if I'm not mistaken, taken in 2020, and you will see a clear difference relative to the commitment these two leaders had to the Galamsey fight.
Let's talk about the Ghana card, a la SIM card re-registration, among others. And now we're being told, I mean, the vice president hinted at it, that it could become that source when it comes to voting in the country. The EC has come out to substantiate that claim. And now the NIA is responding that, look, we'll try our best, but we can't really be boxed into timelines. What do you make of that entire development? You're also on record to have said that some of the data that the EC collected has actually been lost. And I don't know how all of this would feed into the Ghana card conversation and what you think of it moving forward. It's a good thing, definitely. But is it being handled the right way? SIM card re-registration and the Ghana card being used for electoral purposes.
Okay, let me take the issue of the Ghana card being used for electoral purposes first, and then I can deal with SIM card registration. You see, my brother, this issue is an issue of common sense.
Common sense?
Common sense. That is what it is. Nobody, no rational human being can be against a system of capturing the identities or the data of the people.
I mean, it's a drive you had started at a point.
Exactly. In fact, the system which is being used to issue Ghana cards today is our legacy. We procured it in 2013. We contracted Margins Group to do that. We even started issuing Ghana cards for foreigners under the FIMS project in 2013, 2014, 2015, and so on.
You just didn't complete it?
No, we completed the system. We did the factory.
No, I'm saying you didn't complete the process, which is what is being completed now.
We didn't start the issuance of Ghana cards on a mass scale to Ghanaians, but we started the pilot with foreigners. And by the time we were leaving office, the entire system had been concluded, the factory acceptance test has been done, and this government confirms that that work had been done. They only came in to use what had already been prepared for what is being done now, which is okay. We can never be against it. But the issue is that if you are going to do voter registration in this country, and you are going to ask people to present identification documents to prove their nationality, at this stage, you cannot restrict it solely to the Ghana card. Because the NIA, which is the body mandated to issue Ghana cards, has told us that as we speak, there are over 2 million Ghanaians who have not been issued the Ghana card at all. Not even 2 million Ghanaians, more than that. 2 million of the registrable population, because as you may know,
it's actually less than that. I spoke to the PRO recently.
Currently, they are registering persons about 15 years only. So with regards to that population, the last figures I saw was around 2 million. Now, there are even people below 15 years who are not being registered at all. So these people do not have the Ghana card. So commonsensically, as a reasonable person, you cannot say that the only document I will accept as proof of nationality is this Ghana card that about 2 million of the registrable population do not have. That is number one. Number two, even those who have registered for the Ghana card, there are many of them whose cards have not been printed for them yet because of, some challenges that the NIA is confronted with. And they themselves are on public record who have admitted to these challenges. Some have financial challenges, logistical challenges, network challenges, and so on. So some have registered, but their cards have not been printed and issued to them. Others have registered, their cards have been issued to them, but they have misplaced their cards, or there are mistakes on their cards that they are seeking to rectify, and so on. And so these are millions of people, and most of these people are not registered voters. And so in any limited registration exercise, the law must provide for them. What breeder document do you expect these people to produce so that they can prove their nationality and be registered as voters? They can't produce what they don't have. And they don't have the Ghana card by no fault of theirs. The NIA is saying we are challenged and we are unable to do so per your guidelines. So common sense should tell Jean, Adukwe, Mensah, and Bosman Asare to hasten slowly and to come up with other breeder documents. Look, Ghana is the only country in the world that state institutions are saying that they will not accept the passport as proof of nationality. It is the only country in the whole world. There are 195 countries in the world. In every country, the passport of that country is accepted as proof of nationality. Why is it different in Ghana? Why? You can't just understand. Then again, we have spoken about the guarantor system, which has been part and parcel of our registration regime in this country since 1992. Even the Ghana card, which the EC says will be the sole document for identification purposes in a future registration exercise. The law, Act 950, allows the law that governs that is the National Identity Register Regulations, LI 2111 of 2012, allows for a family relative to vouch for a person who doesn't have a birth certificate or a voter's ID card and so on. So that that person is registered.
We've been told
and
that
issued with
that
a Ghana
guarantor
card.
system is going to be ditched.
By the EC. But this is the commonsensical analysis I'm making. If you're saying that the Ghana card is the only document you will accept for identification purposes, forget about the fact that there are millions who don't have the card. Okay, that aside. I'm saying that somebody can guarantee for me, a relative or two non-relatives can guarantee for me to be issued a Ghana card. That is what the law says. So why can't my family relatives guarantee for me to get a voter's ID card? When that Ghana card is the one which is supposed to give birth to that voter's ID card. It simply doesn't make common sense. In this country, there are people sleeping under bridges. Go to Circle and see. They have not seen a passport before. Those people do not have the Ghana card. They don't even know where an NIA office is. You want to disenfranchise all these people. So allow for the passport to be used as a breeder document and allow for the guarantor system, because even the Ghana card registration process recognizes that this is common sense. They are not willing to do so. They are not interested in doing so because right from the get-go, Jimensa and Bosman Asare want to manipulate the electoral system for the ruling New Patriotic Party. And that is why, come tomorrow, I'm breaking the news here, at 2 p.m., the Council of Elders of the National Democratic Congress will be holding a press conference. We haven't publicized it yet, but it will be publicized in the course of the day. The Council of Elders of our party, because of the seriousness of this matter, will be holding a press conference at the NDC headquarters tomorrow at 2 p.m. It will be live on JoyNews, okay, to address the newly proposed CI on voter registration and other election matters that the EC is seeking to lay before Parliament. And we have served notice that we are going to block it. We have directed our members of Parliament to do so. They themselves are fired up that they are not going to allow that CI to be laid. The Speaker of Parliament will be petitioned to make sure that this unjust law, which can create serious, stability issues for our democracy, is not countenanced by our legislature. Then
we have, unfortunately,
maybe
we don't have
some other
time.
We can do that.
We have less than a minute to go. I just want you to do this for me. Article 71 and ex gratia payments. Should Mahama become flag bearer of the NDC? Should he win power, is he going to repeal Article 71, of which he is a beneficiary? Give me a very simple answer.
I see a future NDC government under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama working to amend Article 71 of the 1992 Constitution and working towards the implementation of the recommendation of the Fiajo Commission, which says that Article 71 should be reviewed, and that instead of having ad hoc emoluments committees every 4 years to determine the emoluments and the ex gratia of so-called Article 71 office holders, we should have a standing independent emoluments commission that will determine the emoluments of all public office holders. I see a future NDC government under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama working consciously, working hard towards the implementation of this brilliant recommendation by the Fiajo Commission.
Sami, thank you for having breakfast with us this morning. It's been a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing, should your party get the nod, what alternatives you will bring to bear, like you've espoused. Sami Jemfi is the National Communications Officer of the NDC, and he joined us for this conversation. Now, we're going to be taking a bit of a breather. When we return, my colleague Emefa Apau will be coming to us live from the British High Commission. It's all about the unfortunate demise of Queen Elizabeth II and more of the message, so to speak, as we say farewell to her. All of that after the break. Do stay.
Thank you so much for staying here on the AM show. I'm Bernice Abubedulanza, and today the late Queen, Her Royal Majesty Elizabeth II, will be laid to rest after a religious service at Westminster Abbey. And as you can see in your shots there, that service is just about starting. And after that, we're told that her coffin will be transported to the Windsor Castle for a more intimate committal service, and then finally there will be a private burial for the late Queen. Well, you may be aware that she passed away on Thursday, September 8 at 96, and she died at the Balmoral Castle. There's been a series of activities since her demise, including a vigil that was held in her honor by her grandchildren, and members of the public were allowed to also pay their last respect, and some had to stay in queues for as long as 12 hours. But that's just all to show the love they have for their queen. We also know that in the process leading up after her death, her son, Charles, was appointed king. Well, let me take you now to the British High Commission here in Ghana. My colleague, Emefa Apawu, is speaking to Harriet Thompson, the British High Commissioner to Ghana, about the Queen's funeral.
It's a day that many knew that will come, but still difficult to take. And thankfully, like I said, we're here with Madame Harriet Thompson. Thank you very much for joining us here on the JoyNews channel today. We're hoping you will not be under such circumstances, but we have to do it. First off, we would like to hear how the news hit you about the death of the Queen.
Well, I was actually in the UK, in London, on that day. I met with Ghana's Foreign Minister that morning, and then with the Attorney General of Ghana that afternoon in London. And the reports started coming out gradually, and it became clear that something really was wrong. And then, of course, we got the news that she had died. And precisely as you say, it's a moment that, of course, we'd been expecting, because all of us are going to die one day, and the Queen was getting older, and yet still somehow it's a shock. And I think it is because she has been around for so long. There are so many of us alive today who don't remember any different time. So precisely as you say, it really does feel like the end of an era.
Mm. And since the death and the passing, there's been a lot of talk, outpouring of love, we'll talk about it. But you've received some dignitaries also signing a book of condolences. You've had time to go through it?
Oh, it's been so wonderful this week, and the warmth and the affection that has been shown here in Ghana over the last week has really made a difficult time easier for myself and for my colleagues. We have welcomed political leaders, all of the living former presidents, as well as the president himself of Ghana, leaders of the opposition. We've had traditional leaders, we've had football stars, we've had social personalities. All manner of people have come through to pay their respects, as well as members of the public. And it's been striking how many of them have their own personal connection. So many of them have come through with photographs of either themselves or their parents with either Her Majesty the Queen or His Majesty King Charles, or they've had their own stories to tell, their own anecdotes. And even those people who haven't met the royal family in person, they still somehow feel this personal connection. People will describe feeling that the Queen was their mother or their grandmother. It's been very, very heartening to hear.
What for you runs through all the stories that those who trooped to the Chancery have told in terms of what they've written, amongst others, and the stories they've told you?
I think the themes that come up time and time again are dignity, grace, respect, warmth and affection, and her sense of humour as well. For me, when I think of the Queen, I think of that dedication to service, and she was recognised by many here for that strong sense of duty. She was a leader who saw her position as a leader to serve her people, and that has come out time and time again as we've gone through. So a global leader who also managed to be a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, a huge role model for so many of us.
We've had the stories, countless stories of people who told about encounter with her. I don't know if you had a personal encounter. What's your story with the Queen?
So my story is perhaps not what...
with the Queen.
So my story is perhaps not what you might expect. As a High Commissioner, The Queen, of course, approves our appointments and sends our letters of credence asking our receiving governments to accept us. And we should have an audience with the Queen before we come on these postings. But there's a long backlog, especially with COVID. So I didn't get that audience. However, at the age of 12, the Queen visited my secondary school and she came into my maths classroom and asked about my maths project. And you can imagine, my maths project was not terribly interesting. And yet the Queen was so engaged and so warm and really put everybody in the room at ease. And I think that's where, for me, this very, very strong sense of duty, of service, of warmth, and a genuine interest in human beings, whoever they might be and wherever they might be, that's where that comes from.
Interesting. Well, she's been to Ghana. She loves those. Yes, and we saw the dance, amongst others, that was a talk of the world. But apart from that, there are those who still do not have that kind of connection. There are those who are wondering right now, whilst we celebrate, talk about her funeral, amongst others, wonder, why should I care about the Queen? Why should we care about it? For the ordinary person who wonders why we are making such a fuss about it, what would you say?
So as well as being, So as well as being Queen of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, she was of course also head of the Commonwealth. And Ghana is a proud, strong, forthright member of the Commonwealth. Indeed, the very first member of the Commonwealth, having been the first country to gain independence from Britain in '57. And that sense of unity that she brought across those countries who decided to join the Commonwealth. There's no obligation to be a member of the Commonwealth. But with her as the head, that family of members who share the same values, who are committed to democracy and to respect for human rights and so on, is something that's very, very strong. So that, I think, will live on through King Charles, of course. But beyond that, as a role model for so many of us, I think we could all do well to learn from the Queen, to learn from that dedication, that commitment, that willingness to be there no matter what and do the right thing no matter what, always with respect, with dignity and with grace.
With her passing, what then happens to the Commonwealth?
Commonwealth members decided that King Charles would take over from the Queen when he did indeed become king. So that's what will happen. And I am very confident from what we've seen already that he will maintain that same level of commitment to the Commonwealth as his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, dedicated to it. It means a huge amount, the global family of nations that make up the Commonwealth. And I'm sure that King Charles, with the Queen Consort, will want to get out and visit as many countries as they possibly can.
You're hopeful he would get to enjoy that the mother got.
So I'm sure it won't be the same. I think that I think that we need to not think that under King Charles things will remain the same as under Queen Elizabeth II, because he's a different person. However, I do think that he will bring his own humanity, he will bring his own keen interest in the world and in the people of the world to that position. And although he has been a global figure through the whole of his life, not in the same way as the Queen. Now he steps into this role as king. I think we will see that change. I think people will come to know King Charles III better than they do currently, and they'll come to see that in his personality as well.
Would affect anything in terms of our bilateral relations with Ghana? I've heard people raise concerns about it. What happens to that relationship that we have with the UK?
I'm very sure that the relationship between the UK and Ghana will continue to go from strength to strength. King Charles, as Prince Charles, last visited Ghana only very recently in 2019. He had a fantastic time, and I'm sure he'll be keen to get back at any opportunity. Certainly will be pushing for that, but there'll be a long list of places that he'll want to visit. But he's spoken to the President already by phone before the funeral. He's spoken also to the Asantehene, with whom he holds a long-standing personal friendship. So I have absolutely no worries on that front whatsoever. I'm very, very confident confident that that relationship will continue strong.
Came on. That invitation that we saw on social media was actually not a good one or a fake invitation, but I'm glad to hear that King Charles has spoken to the Asantehene. So the invitation was actually valid.
Yes, he was invited. Yeah.
He was invited, so he's in the UK as we speak for the funeral.
So I know he received the invitation, whether he's actually been able to attend.
So I know he received the invitation, whether he's actually been able to attend, that you have to check with Windsor Palace. But the royal families have a very, as I say, very long-standing relationship between them. They see each other when the Asantehene is in the UK, and it was in that capacity that he was invited to the funeral along with Lady Julia.
Okay. We'll talk about the ceremony of the death of the Queen on Ghana, our relationship. You've told us it's intact. Some assurances there that most people wanted to hear. But how about for your own country? You've talked about in the lifetime of many of you, about 80% or so only know Queen Elizabeth. At least the last state funeral we had that we've heard of is that of Winston Churchill. But really, we've seen the outpouring of love for Queen Elizabeth. Will things be the same for the UK with her passing?
So again, we can't expect things to be the same. Things change constantly. That's the nature of things. However, we've seen already from King Charles, with him already having visited Scotland, of course, where his mother died, Wales, Northern Ireland, before coming to London, where the Queen has been lying in state. That commitment to the union, and wherever he has been, we've seen the warmth and affection with which he's been received.
So after that we go back to business as usual, as it were, only it won't be as usual because we'll have a new...
As usual, as it were, only it won't be as usual because we'll have a new head of state. So we will be settling into that. We'll be helping him to get up to speed with his new duties. Of course, this is something he's been preparing for all of his life. So he's very ready to take on this role. So we will wait to see how the monarchy might evolve under him. We'll wait to see how the Commonwealth might evolve under him. But yes, business resumes on Tuesday.
Still wanting to stay the way things are because of the allegiance to Queen Elizabeth, for instance.
Well, again, we've seen these things.
Well, again, we've seen these things change over the decades. When the Queen herself came to the throne, she was Queen of Kenya, she was Queen of Pakistan, for example. We saw Barbados take its decision. It formerly had the Queen as its head of state. It was one of the realms. There are now 15 realms, including the United Kingdom. And King Charles, as Prince Charles, has always been very clear that it is for countries to decide their own constitutional arrangements. And changes can happen calmly, changes can happen without rancour, as we saw in the case of Barbados. If more countries decide to make those changes, then that's just further change which is to be expected.
We're hoping it will still be a kingdom united. Okay, well, let's talk about plans for today. At least we've seen the lying in state for the past 4 or so days, and the thousands that thronged the Westminster Hall to see or pay their last respects to Queen Elizabeth. Let's talk about today in terms of plans outlined for the state funeral.
So the state funeral begins at 11 o'clock UK time.
So the state funeral begins at 11 o'clock UK times, that's 10 o'clock here. The coffin will be moved from Westminster Hall, where it's been lying in state, to Westminster Abbey. There will be around 2,000 guests in Westminster Abbey, including hundreds of heads of state and government and other dignitaries, but also members of the public. Some of those who were honoured for services to their communities, for example, in the last round of Queen's birthday honours, will all be there present at that very public funeral. There'll then be a procession through London before the Queen's coffin is taken to Windsor, where there'll be a private ceremony to mark the end of the day.
That's interesting. And here in Ghana, it's going to happen. Are we having a replica of what's happening in the UK right here?
We won't be. In Ghana, we decided to
organise in collaboration with the Anglican Church of Ghana, to whom we're highly grateful, a Thanksgiving service on Friday, which was a really wonderful occasion where, precisely as the name suggests, we remembered the Queen with joy and what she had brought to the world with respect. So here today in Ghana, of course, people will be watching the funeral in private. I know that there are many Ghanaians in London also, amongst those who have waited for so long to be able to catch a glimpse of the procession as it goes through the capital. So I'll be looking out for the Ghanaian flags in the crowd, should there be any.
Marmalade, for instance, and whether we're keeping it in our handbags, amongst others. But I'm interested, you've talked about the living presidents of this country who have had some encounter with the late Queen at some point or the other. They've been with you during the period and the outpouring of love. Really, what did they say, where they encounter? Let's start with President Akufo-Addo, for instance.
So President Akufo-Addo has met Her Majesty.
So President Akufo-Addo has met Her Majesty, had met Her Majesty the Queen on a number of occasions. He spoke about this sense of service that we keep talking about, the warmth, the affection, the respect with which people regard the Queen. He talked about the great friendship between the two nations, which again we've talked about this morning as well.
How about President Muhammad?
Just about the same.
This sense of duty, this sense of respect.
Recurring themes, this sense of duty, this sense of respect, this huge sense of affection, of warm emotion towards Her Majesty the Queen. One of the interesting ones was talking with President Kufuor, who was invited on a state visit to the UK and was hosted at Buckingham Palace for 3 days, including with a state banquet. And the memories that he talks about from that time were just, I mean, unique, very, very special.
That's interesting. Are you surprised about the massive... In Ghana, not just in the UK, around the world, massive outpouring. Surprised about it?
I was expecting huge emotion, but not on this scale, I have to be honest. And from the breadth, the length and breadth of the world.
The breadth, the length and breadth of the world. One of the people that the BBC spoke to this morning when I was listening, who'd stayed out overnight in order to get a good spot to watch the procession coming through London, was from Brazil. So it's really touched people right the way across the planet.
What should be the reflection? The Queen to rest today, you'd say?
So I think it's a good time to...
So I think it's a good time to remember quite how much has happened over the 70 years that she has been in power. The world has changed almost beyond recognition in some cases, and she was there constant throughout, trying to do what was right throughout, even when those things were difficult. I think for me, that sense of leadership, service in leadership is something that I find really important. Our leaders are there to help us, and that sense of duty and commitment to duty is something that I hold very closely to me. I think the world would be a better place if all of our leaders had that same sense of service and duty towards their people.
Even though she wasn't one, she was still selfless. Well, we'll just be wrapping up on this. We're still live on the AM show, on the Joy News channel, also on myjoyonline.com, also on all our social media platforms, as we get ready to lay Queen Elizabeth to rest. And you've told us starting from the Westminster Abbey all the way to the Windsor Castle, then that's when everything will come to an end. Today, we'll still continue to remember her selflessness, her dignity, and her humility. And just before we go, we're talking about marmalades and Paddington. How are you looking at them differently now?
So my mum makes marmalade now.
So my mum makes marmalade. So we have a cupboard full of marmalade, but now there'll forever be that association with the Queen herself. I also, during this past week, watched again the clip of her arriving at the London 2012 Olympics with James Bond parachuting out of a helicopter. And that sense of humour, I think, is so important to remember in her and to try to find in all of ourselves as we go about our daily lives, whichever role we're in.
And continue with the service for today. It's a very memorable day, a day of reflection. We appreciate your time today, but just before we go, I'm sure you have some parting words for all of us for today and beyond in terms of the unity and everything else.
The thing that I most want to say is a huge, huge thank you to everybody in Ghana who has shown such warmth and such affection for Her Majesty the Queen, for the royal family and for the United Kingdom. It's been uplifting to see, really heartening to see. And as I said earlier, I'm very confident that under His Majesty King Charles III, the relationship between our two countries will remain strong and develop still further. Thank you.
We appreciate your time. In your humble home. We're grateful. That's Her Excellency, the UK High Commissioner to Ghana, Madam Harriet Thompson. Over to you, Bernice, and the team.
Right, MFR Howard there, having that conversation with Harriet Thompson, who represents the UK here in Ghana. And just some words of reflection, even as she ended that conversation, that the Queen has lived in different dispensations, and her ability to remain relevant in all of these is one to emulate. Right here on the AM show, we will be moving on, but here on the JoyNews channel, we will be bringing you updates on the Queen's funeral. I'm sure you may have seen or spotted that our President, Akufo-Addo, and his wife are at Westminster Abbey right now, even as the world mourns the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. And we know that later today her body will be moved to the Windsor Castle for a more intimate committal service, and there will be a private burial finally. But for now, that'll be it on the Queen's funeral. Like I mentioned, we will be taking you back there in subsequent bulletins throughout the day. But we'll move on to other issues now. And just to let you know, retail prices of fertilizer have increased by more than 200%. And there's a real threat to availability of basic food crops in the coming months as farmers are unable to buy the needed fertilizer. Farmer Line is supporting farmers by making affordable fertilizer available to them through a discount program. We are inviting you to also support us by donating 10 CDs or more to raise 1 million CDs to reach over 25,000 farmers this season. Here's how to do that. Simply dial *887 *4444# to donate. Your donations go directly to the farmers and directly towards food security here in Ghana. And hello, how about treating your family to a summer holiday in come journey to South Africa for a good time in our country. Get to know the locals in our languages. Now, if you're looking to let your head down, relax, or you're just in the mood for some fun, family-friendly adventures, South Africa has got everything you need. This summer was Zanila. Come decide and experience a holiday worth talking about. So really chilling story there put together by our correspondent. And as you may expect, there was a series of protests after this particular discovery, and the people of Wa are really upset about what is happening. We are learning that the IGP is on his way there. But for now, we've been joined by Salifu Isifu Kantong. He is Executive Director of the Community Development Alliance. Ahmed Awal Karyama is Executive Director of Rice Ghana, and Rice Ghana has released a statement on this matter, and we'll be delving deeper into that. So let me start with you, Salifu. We're learning now that the IGP is heading there. The issue of people getting missing in the Upper West region is as early as this year or in the first quarter of this year. Would you say, or would you agree with those who say that the proactiveness of the police or the lack of it led to the serialization of these killings or alleged killings?
It's really heartbreaking and very sad. I have lived in West for the past 15 years, And never in the history of this community has there been so much fear, so much anxiety, and so much feeling of terror around. Even children can feel it as they go to school. I recall my 4-year-old boy asking me, Dada, what at all is happening in this town? Every day they are talking about people missing, people being killed. How do we overcome this? I have seen a lot of families calling, and basically that they hear dogs barking, so they feel probably somebody's intruding their house and maybe wanting to take them. So there's a lot of fear and anxiety in the town because of this issue. And like you rightly mentioned, it appears that security capos may have slept a little bit on the job, because these issues happened way back sometime January, February. We recorded the first incident, then virtually on systematic basis, every month or 2 weeks, we record a case of these kinds of murders and missing people. And in fact, the pattern and the trend looks very similar. And you would often, when you see them, you find the police being a bit more reactionary, checking border for the main roads, basically ransacking people's vehicles. But it appears that this issue requires a bit more intelligence, because it is not a crime that people brazenly take guns on the street and they shoot people and kill. No. These are people who are doing a covert activity. They hide under the cover of darkness and they murder people, they take their bodies and they take out body parts and they dump the body somewhere or they bury it in a shallow grave. So this kind of crime means that the people recognize that there is a likelihood that they will be caught, so they are doing it undercover. So you would need a lot more intelligence-led policing to unravel crimes like that. Unfortunately, we didn't see that happen until we have recorded almost to the 8th or 9th person. Then we are seeing the police and the security agencies now showing that, oh, they are alive to it and they can do something about it. I think we need to take security quite very seriously. And over the past couple of years in the Upper West region, we have heard continuously from the police command, oh, there are fewer numbers, there are fewer logistics, they are not properly resourced, and their capacity. And mind you, this is an area that has already been highlighted as a potential place for extremist incursion or infiltration. So we need to beef up security along this area.
Right.
Regrettably, we haven't seen that much. And I can tell you right now, in Wa, it's like everybody is very fearful, and there's a lot of anxiety in the town.
All right.
And people are extremely feeling a state of terror in their homes, even as they sleep.
All right, Salifu, we understand that there has been some recent deployment. Do you see the visibility? The men on the ground, are they in the town?
Oh yes, there is a significant deployment. But many of the citizens are not too very comfortable with how they have been deployed. Basically on our streets, every junction, you have people there. But you see, there's a feeling that the nature of, like, I remember yesterday I went to Baba here, and a young man said, if we knew who the people are, we ourselves would have flagged them out. But because we do not know, we expected the police to look at this from a policing intelligence point of view. That these are not criminals who are on the streets fighting the people or the residents. No, these are covert operations.
Right.
And so the moment you put a lot more visibility, they are likely to go more undercover. And the likelihood of you unraveling them may become very more difficult.
Right.
So the thinking among many of the residents is that they expected a more intelligence-led operation that would unravel the mystery and arrest the perpetrators. Then the people will get to know that the police is underway. But the visibility, yes, they think they see a lot of police people around, but there's a lot as to whether that strategy will be the one that will unravel the mystery, particularly bringing the perpetrators to book.
I will come back to you. Sorry, Mr. Canton.
Also that showed up.
Okay.
You remember after the last, the latest killing, the youth marched to the palace of the Wana in their hundreds. They didn't go to the regional minister's office, or they didn't go to the police command. They marched to the overlord, and they demanded him to speak to them and come out with actions that they believe would lead to the unraveling of that. For me, as a civil society activist, that is worrying, because we live in a democracy. So when the people, the young people of the community, feel that they are more secure and they must demand answers from their local authorities rather than the official authority, then it then begins to question whether or not they are losing confidence in the state's ability to protect them.
Right, I'll come back to you. Sorry.
We must look up to.
Sorry, Mr. Canton. Hello, sorry. I just need to bring in Ahmed Awal at this point. I'll come back to you. Just hold on with your thoughts for me there. Mr. Awal, you have released a statement. As Executive Director of RISE Ghana, you're not only concerned about the level of security provided by the Ghana Police Service and other security apparatus, you're also concerned about the companies that employ these security officers. You say that most of them are aged. In this latest incident, we are told that this security man is about 58 years old. But for you're saying that you want MUSEC, RECSEC to consider enacting bylaws to ensure private individuals put adequate security measures and do not solely rely on aged people for security work. First off, what is informing your release, or what is informing this recommendation?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss this important matter. I want to thank your viewers and listeners, as well as appeal for calm from the people, our good brothers and sisters in war, as the skills try to unravel these serious menace that has bedeviled them. Our position is informed by the fact that government as well as state parties have a responsibility to ensure social protection for all people who are vulnerable. And vulnerable groups include people who are aged. And so no aged person, if you look at our status in terms of policy, are clear guidelines and clear-cut recommendations. The concept of social protection talks about the fact that we should be able to create an enabling environment for people who are vulnerable and poor and exposed to risks to have comfortable lives. And so people who are aged, like the kind of are engaged as security personnel, normally should have a social protection system. People should not be looked for jobs like security jobs, very risky in the night, to be able to take care of themselves. So that informs our position that we need to look at our social protection system as a country, so that the people who are most vulnerable, especially the aged, have something to fall back on, so that they don't have to take up these risky jobs to be able to take care of themselves. And we're also talking about the fact that the duty of care, if you look at it, the employers have a legal and moral obligation to ensure that whoever they are employing is not exposed to risk. If you run a check in terms of how the security people are operating, they have next to nothing in terms of just to protect themselves when they are attacked. You find that when somebody employs security, they give the person as much life to be able to just check around and see what is happening. They basically do not provide them any form of logistics that they can to even blow alarm. I'm not saying that security personnel should be armed, but at least they should have certain gadgets that can trigger for alarm to blow so that people can come to their rescue. But in most of the cases, this is not being able to be done. It's unfortunate that they are not able to do it. It's basically what we are calling for.
Right. Mr. Canton raised concern about how most of the people feel the police is addressing this. They want a more intelligence-led approach instead of the show of men on the streets and all that. In your opinion, how do you think this situation can be handled by the police?
Yes, first of all, we even thought that in the beginning, the police didn't need to go about showing that they are visible and all over the place. We were thinking that, in fact, this is an intelligence operation. And so, first of all, we know there is a certain pattern or trend of this kind. Okay, we are talking about the fact that it started as far as back as February, and it's a trend. Only security persons are attacked, and at certain periods of the day. That's since 9. Most especially, you know that there's a trend and path of the operation of this criminal. So we were thinking that instead of the police parading themselves and roaming about to show that they are around, they could actually lay ambush and set up dummy security personnel. Okay, so you know that private property, shops, schools are attacked. The security men at this school. So you can call up one of the security people, some of the security position at that place, station some of your men there and lay ambush. If they have done that, we wouldn't get to the 7th and the 8th incident. We're talking about the fact that the cases are up to 9. 2 people are missing. We have just assumed the body. So if they had put their ears on the ground, and then of course we also need to talk about the issue of police coverage and police in terms of police response and resourcing of the police force. We are talking about the fact that there's a standard, by the UN, that for every 500 citizens we should have 1 police officer. When you look critically at the police citizen ratio, the Upper West region, and in most parts of Ghana, it's nothing to write home about. We have worked in communities and districts where we have seen that the police coverage is less than 20%. And so we need to have intelligence gathering. And we have known over the years that when citizens and civil society are involved in intelligence gathering, there is a lot of benefits and outcomes that's very positive. We speak about the police who was killed and buried in a foundation somewhere in Accra, a very popular case, the role of citizens. It was a toddler, a young person, a small boy who was able to lead the police to that intelligence to unravel that mystery. We know that the people of Upper West are also open and have ideas to solve this problem. And so the police will collaborate effectively with them. We have people like the CA, the Ghana Center, who's the executive director you are interviewing today as well, who are doing a lot of work around country and citizen and security issues. Their ideas and views collated so that we can to address this mystery.
Okay, briefly, in about 30 seconds, what would you expect from the IGP's visit?
I think that the IGP's visit should be a wake-up call. We don't want it to be a normal fanfare visit, but it should be able to give us a concrete timeline in terms of what steps they are going to take to underrate, to eliminate this cancer. And then most importantly, I think that the IGP should make time to visit and meet the foreign nationals who are being accused, because we think that it's a dangerous precedent that we need to address effectively and start talking about. Because once we begin to label and stereotype people, assigning them to a certain crime, chances are that the real criminals may hide under that, and then it can lead largely to xenophobia, which we are terribly concerned about, as we have seen its effect in other places like South Africa and others. So the IGP should make time and meet all parties, especially the foreign nationals. They should be able to serve as a watchdog and peer review each other as foreign nationals, so that their name would not be their name will not be taken for granted as criminals.
I appreciate your time here this morning. Ahmed Awal Karayama is Executive Director of RISE Ghana. Let me end with you, Mr. Canton. So you made some allusions to the fact that the enclave where these crimes occur is considered a place where there's likely to be some form of extremism in case of any possible infiltration. Awal has just mentioned that there are some foreigners, but he is advising against targeted suspicion. He thinks that doesn't help. But tell us how all this plays into the general mood in the town. Do you get a sense that people say this is not who we are, this is possibly being done by persons who do not belong or live here?
Well, my dear sister, you're perfectly right. I have always advocated against stereotyping and profiling of people by virtue of their tribes or nationalities as criminals. That certainly would basically help lead to a lost situation. I think we must approach crime as crime, whether it's being committed by A, B, or C. The crime is a crime, and every tribe has criminals and it has good people. So we cannot pigeonhole or claim that, a particular tribe or a particular nationality, they are the criminal, and we must at all times when there's crime suspect them. That is wrong. In the one municipality currently, it's clear that there's a bit of anxiety, and in that desperation, some particular groups are targeted or suspected to be potentially those behind this heinous crime. Because the nature of the crime is not very common in the area. This is a very close-knit society where we all know each other and related to each other through our various ethnic and very norms that have shaped the society. So this nature of crime certainly is very new and uncommon in the area. And once we begin to see that, it causes apprehension. And that is how come you would have heard in the news that some Nigerians were targeted and their shops gone to be ransacked and their homes being ransacked and all of that. It is because of the feeling that this is probably an imported crime that is not known and uncommon in the area. And we have been out there and educating our people that no, let's not stereotype. Let's not target particular groups. Let us confront it as a criminal issue. Let us encourage ourselves to be more vigilant and to report any suspicious activity around us. Let us watch our neighbors, those who live with us, those who live by us. Let us get to know what they do. And when we suspect any activity, we should report to the police so that we can all help ensure that our community is kept safe and secured, and that everyone is free to go about doing their normal businesses.
We wish you all the best, Mr. Canton, and we hope that this ends quickly. The police is able to bring the perpetrators to book so that you all feel safe in Wa. Salifu Isifu Canton is Executive Director of Community Development Alliance, and he's been talking to us about the situation in Wa. Well, the police has spoken about the incident. We are told that the family of the man whose body was exhumed is being offered some clinical psychological help. The police is also assuring residents of Wa of working hard to bring the perpetrators to book. We are told that the intelligence and special investigations teams are already on the ground. And so we'll be staying in touch, and definitely a man on the ground, Rafiq Salam, will be feeding us with every update. Right, quickly, we will be wrapping up the show, but before that, I'll be speaking to a rep from the Pope John's All Students Association. His year group is celebrating 17 years after completing high school, and so there's a homecoming event to commemorate that. So do stay quickly. I will be talking to a rep from the 2005 year group of Pope John's All Students Association. Do stay.
Of the 17th anniversary of leaving Pope John, the executives of the 2005 year group has planned a homecoming trip to the school on the 23rd to 25th of September 2022. Participating year groups are 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007 and 2009 year groups. As a way of giving back to the school, the year group intends to purchase photocopiers, lighting up of the classrooms, dormitories and school compound. So get ready, pack your things, and let's go back to our roots. It's going to be fun. For inquiries and sponsorship to this event, call 024-588-3298 or 0244-674-657 or 0249-902-920. Pojoba, das bre.
I have interesting memories of Pojoba when I was in high school. Time will not allow me to say that. I went to Fantuman Girls though, but I've got Pojoba Mopasa, who is with the 2005 year group. It's an interesting name. When he told me, I asked him, is it Mufasa from the Lion King? But he says this is what, an abbreviation, yeah? Of what?
Oh, it stands for Massive Omni Performer, Hail the Supreme Artist.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Okay, so tell us about this event. We've just seen it briefly advertised there, but why do you even think it's necessary to celebrate 17 years of completing high school?
Okay, so let me start it this way with the background. 2022 marks 20 years since we entered into Pope John, and from 2005 to 22 marks 17 years of our graduation. Now what it is that we've been hosting these events outside campus of Pope John yearly with football games and all that. What it brings us to do is that it actually brings us back to sort of fraternize, integrate ourselves, and then recollect memories. And if there are any connections between us in terms of any advancements, we do it usually. Now what it is that this time around, with consents and collaborations from the administration and the National Executive Council, which is headed by Isaac Abuajidia, and then the headmistress, Benedicta Foley, we've sought permission to go and host this event on campus, which we've dubbed Back to Our Roots. Okay, now what it is that we're going to do is we're going to have some counseling session with the students,
the current
students, and then we're going to come up with some cleanup exercises, games between the year groups from 2003, 4, 5, all the way to 2009. From that, we're going to have dinner with the students, and then ended up with the entertainment.
I'm interested in the dinner. Are you going to give them home chore or you eat the dining hall food?
And from my understanding, there will be a mix of it.
Okay, because you know what's happening with food in high schools nowadays.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, don't mind me. Just picking on you there.
So basically, the whole idea is to help with the promotion of the school, okay? Because the training that we had there, we expect that we have to tell the story for others to also join. You get it? And then if there are any supports we can offer in terms of the administrative operation, we will do that. And then provide some counseling for the choice of career and development for the school, and then show gratitude to the administration as well.
That's nice. So there are people who may be watching us, members of your year group.
Sure.
Talk to them. Give them reason to join you if they haven't decided to yet, and let them know when the event is happening so they can plan for it.
Sure. So the event is happening Friday, 23rd September to 25th. So Friday, Saturday.
Just this Friday?
Just this Friday.
Okay.
Now, there are plans that we are supposed to converge at Peduase, Ibri, to have a convoy all the way at 2 p.m. Now, the need for you to come around is that a lot has happened over 17 years. It's best that we come together. And you know, the kind of force that we actually yield whenever we are together is going to propel growth. It's going to allow others to also hear of the school. You get it? And so it's important that we come and then make sure that we make it a success.
All right, so this Friday, do they have to pay anything to be a part? What exactly is the protocol for joining the team to Koforidua?
Well, I think it's individual. It's not arranged with a bus or something. It's just individual, voluntary. You show
then that's going to be a very long convoy, man.
Exactly. And then there's a surprise package of it too. We are coming up with a theme song. From the Mufasa camp, coming up with a theme song.
Are you a singer?
Yeah, I'm a singer, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a lyricist, so usually...
But what's your actual name?
My name is Anthony Afuakwa.
Okay, Anthony, we're wrapping up in about a minute. What are your fondest memories at Pope John Senior High School?
As a science student, it was very odd for me to be part of the entertainment clique, who usually performs on Saturday and then tours with other schools. And I usually dance with Gunshot. For me, he's the best dancer that I've ever seen or witnessed dance, and he actually gives me a lot of memories, you know.
Can you give us a few moves sitting down?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I can just flip and then give you some high.
Okay. I was expecting to see that because that was a thing back then. So, so you got me right there. Okay. But what will your teachers remember you for?
For me, I wasn't very fond with the teachers. I was a day student, you know. So I usually didn't have a lot.
Were you giving them trouble?
Trouble, no.
Right.
John, usually we are very disciplined, and so the worst you can do is to scale a wall, and if you're caught, you're gonna get sacked. So.
I'm told you're a very good dancer.
Sure.
I wish I could pull the desk up for you to give us a few moves.
You'd have to join us.
No.
It's gonna be massive.
Thank you. As in, you mean join you to? I thought you said join you to dance. Why not? If you manage to convince my producer to convince me, I can join you. A weekend getaway won't be a bad idea.
My favorite school though is your school though.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Thank you. I remember one of the NSMQ moments. Some Pope John's guys came to our school, and it was interesting. It was interesting, but you still can't take the place of Adisado, you know.
Okay.
All right, on that note, we wrap up this edition of the AM show. Thank you so much, Mufasa, for coming through. And thank you for doing the watching at home. We really appreciate your company. Don't forget that we are still live, interactive, as always, on Facebook and Twitter. We are JoyNews on TV. Up next is News Desk. Do stay.